couldn't call for a ride. Staggering, the horrors on your face were real. Every thought you think of comes out of your mouth. What's new? What's the deal? Where do they come from? Do you ever think what you don't say? Probably not that much. Probably not that much. Probably not this
you. Whew. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
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 Thanks.
Oh, thank you.
I am the devil. I am the Lord Satan from the netherworld, ruler of the damned and eternal king of hell. Even I, the master of deceit, can only stomach so much bullshit from the mainstream media and indie grifters. That's why I tune in to Morning Extra with Uncle Warren, because he eliminates my competition, and also because I know I'm gonna see that motherfucker soon.
Baby's got a burger and a shooter and that naked won't go down. Baby's got a burger and a shooter and that shit won't go down. Corrosion, corrosion paradise, erosion, erosion of her pride. Baby's got a shooter, baby's got it, baby's got it. Corrosion now, corrosion now. Baby's got it.
Greetings and salutations from planet Earth, from the Chicagoland area. It's a good 82 degrees out there right now. Been a baker the last few days. Got a little heat wave going on. We'll tell you more about that, what's going on not just here in Chirac, but around the country too, as far as the weather. It's a hot potato, right? Not delicious buttery potato with like sour cream and chives, maybe some bacon bits in there, maybe drizzle some cheese. Noms. Let's see who's here. Oh, Rockfin. I see Rockfin and all I see is tumbleweeds. I see the Old West, you know, the sepia tone, and then the it really is a ghost town over there, I think. Yeah, so just so you know, we're not going to be streaming on there after July 1st. So the channel will still be up. It'll just be kind of just lingering there. We're exploring other options. Maybe Odyssey, probably not, but Rumble is weird because Rumble, you know, we have our little handful of chatters every once in a while, but we get like good viewers. At least I don't know how they do views on Rumble, but we get more views on those videos than we do on YouTube. You know, for various reasons, algorithms, my lack of, you know, cleanliness and overall hygiene probably had something to do with it. You no longer tumbleweed, Mystery. Good to see it. Yeah, let's shout out who's on the tubes there. Mystery, good to see you. Wednesday, Wesley, yes, ready for daily doomsday porn. At least we tell you in advance this is bad news. So, CJ, what's up? Doe, a deer, a female deer. Game.film. What's up, buddy? Good to see you. We got Chuck's Intergalactic UFO Show Intergalactic. Miguel. Rockin' and a rollin', splishin' and a splashin'. And CBC voter managed to show up. That's good. Always good to see you, my sweat hogs. I feel like Mr. Cotter And these guys are my sweat hogs. I hope that reference never goes away. So if you're old, keep it going. Pass it on to the grandkids. Grandpa, what are sweat hogs? Back in the day, there was this thing called the 1970s. What else we got here? There's something else I was going to tell you too. What is it? Oh yeah. So we sold out. I told you we sold out, and the worst coffee you can imagine. And we're selling it. Let me see if I remember how to do this. Is this the thing? Here we go. I love money. I'm sorry. I love money. I love it. I'd bathe in it. I'd do like a Mr. Burns and just rub my body with hundreds, especially on my areolas. All right, let's get this over with. Desperation Blend Extra Dark Roast Ground Coffee. Raised by Wolves and winner of the 1984 Oscar for Best Cinematography, this nightmarish blend of self-loathing and a lack of pride in oneself will have you pining away for hospital vending machine coffee toot sweet. Does throwing your money away lack the thrill it once had? Do you enjoy waking up to the fresh smell of frustration and the hatred of a system that has rewarded those failing upward and oppressed the minds of love and spiritual growth? Then grab a bag of desperation. Coffee. Desperation Blend Extra Dark Roast Ground Coffee, found online and in most adult video store bathrooms. There you go. That's the bit. That's the coffee bit. Sponsored by Desperation Blend Extra Dark Roast. Particularly ground. Okay. You did not need that. Unfortunately, they pay me, so I have to keep doing these dumb commercials for them. I mean, the smart advertising campaign. You see me winking? I do like the money part, though, where you rub it on the Nipsey Russells. That's nice. All right, all the buffoonery, the silliness is out of the way, I think. Yeah, I think so. So let's get to that bad news. I promise. Well, we'll get to Trumpy's little promise that he made that, oopsie, didn't come true, momentarily. Meanwhile, Iran says they've targeted the U.S. Qatar Air Base under Operation Annunciation of Victory. So that was in response to the bunker buster rubber baby buggy bumpers that the U.S. did to them over the weekend. So doesn't this look like some sort of circuit board? I was looking at this, I was like, man, this looks like like a motherboard or something from like a 1980s or 90s computer, right? You know, you got your little ports here, you know, and you got some shit here. I'm just saying, we live in a computer. Maybe Tron is real. Explosions were reported over the Qatari capital Doha on Monday, shortly after a Western diplomat revealed that a credible Iranian threat had been issued against the U.S.-operated Al Udeid Air Base. So if this is all old news to you, this is just a little catch-up to get to where we're going here today. According to a Reuters witness, loud blasts were heard in the Qatari capital. There's some things there, some flying around bits. Shortly after, Iran's Tasnim news agency said the country's armed forces launched an operation dubbed Annunciation of Victory. So I guess that would be victory. See, because it's your enunciation. Against U.S. bases in Iraq and Qatar in retaliation for the American aggression against key Iranian nuclear facilities. The Iranian armed forces announced that they targeted Al Udeid with a devastating and powerful missile attack. Qatar claimed it had successfully intercepted an Iranian missile attack on Al Udeid base. The Ministry of Defense announced that Qatari air defenses successfully intercepted a missile attack targeting Al Udeid Air Base. It said in a statement, adding that the incident did not result in any deaths or injuries. Why? Because they told them in advance they were going to do it. They said, hey, you probably don't want to be around here later because reasons. And you know, the boom, boom, boom reasons. Doha condemned the Iranian operation, labeling it as a flagrant violation of its sovereignty. We express the state of Qatar's strong condemnation of the attack on Al Udeid Air Base by the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, and consider it a flagrant violation of the state of Qatar's sovereignty and airspace, as well as of international law. Foreign Ministry spokesman Majed Al-Ansari said in a statement. I guess there were no Qatar heroes available. Qatar also said it reserves the right to respond directly and in accordance with international law. Additionally, military sources told Reuters that air defense systems have been activated at the American Al-Assad Air Base in Iraq over fears of potential Iranian strikes. SpaghettiOs. Here comes trouble. The sources added that maximum alert was declared on the base, followed by orders to shelter in bunkers. Earlier, an informed source told Reuters that Iran coordinated its strikes on U.S. bases in Qatar, prompting airspace closure. See, it told them in advance, hey, buddy, look, we don't want to fuck nobody up, but we're going to have to take out a couple of buildings, all right? You know, for appearances, you know, just to say that, you know, that we responded, you know the thing. Or as Biden would say, you know the thing, and then he shit himself. Qatar had announced the temporary closure of its airspace to ensure the safety of residents and visitors. The announcement followed an alert from the U.S. Embassy advising Americans to shelter in place out of an abundance of caution. Qatar's foreign minister later confirmed on the tweeters that airspace was closed due to regional developments, but did not elaborate. He said, me not know, boom, boom, go, big cans, me scared. That's all they could get out of him. The FAA also issued a notice to airmen, a notice to airmen regarding the closure of airspace over Al Udeid Air Base. Iran has threatened retaliation after U.S. forces dropped 30,000-pound bunker buster bombs on underground Iranian nuclear installations over the weekend. Al Udeid Air Base, located in Qatar, serves as the largest U.S. military installation in the Middle East, hosting about 10,000 troops. It functions as the forward headquarters for U.S. Central Command. 2 U.S. officials had told Reuters that Iranian retaliation could target American forces in the region within the next 48 hours. See, this is like some sort of brinksmanship, right? Like the chessboard shit, only with people and boom booms and guns, right? So what it is they're trying to make the United States and Israel look like the bad guys for just launching out all just random shit, and Iran's over here looking like they're sipping tea, going, "I say, Iran, we shall fancy some rockets flying away in about 6 hours or so. We hope you enjoy them. We've included a fancy floral bouquet with a nice aroma. We had maybe some bath salts in there as well. Not the drugs, the actual things you put in your bath. You know." Meanwhile, they're still kicking Israel's ass. So anyway, just a little round the corner rando shit right there. What's up, Kate? You're not late. You're always on time wherever you go, Kate, okay? So, you can do no wrong in my eyes. You know that. I like to spoil my sweeties. So we mentioned in the old clickbait thumbnail there that Trump had gotten this thing a done deal. I was just saying, no, that's what he's saying. And, of course, Iran says, wait, what? Iran denies launching missiles after Trump imposed ceasefire with Israel. What's this all about? Iran has denied launching any missiles toward Israel following the ceasefire agreement imposed by President Trumpy early today, or yesterday, last night, actually, here. Iranian state television reported that the news of missiles being launched from Iran at 10:30 a.m. on Tuesday was false after sirens sounded across Israel's north, and a statement by the Israeli home front claiming renewed fire from Iran. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz said he ordered the army to respond forcefully to Iran's violation of the ceasefire with intense strikes against regime targets in the heart of Tehran. Iran will tremble, Israel's finance minister Bezalel Smotrich said, as he was wearing his man diapers. According to a statement by the Iranian Army's Qatim al-Anbiya headquarters, Israel has attacked Iran 3 times since the ceasefire went into effect. In a statement, the Iranian National Security Council vowed that Tehran will respond to any new attacks. O people of Iran, the armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran declare that from this moment onward, any aggression or threat from the Zionist entity or its backers will be met with a decisive and direct response, the statement read. Before the renewed missile launches, Israeli Prime Minister and human thumbnail Benjamin Netanyahu said he has agreed to Trump's ceasefire proposal. The ceasefire was announced suddenly, early on June 24th, like I said, late last night, hours after Iran carried out a symbolic retaliation against Washington's Al Udeid air base in Qatar, as we told you, in response to the U.S. attack on Iranian nuclear facilities over the weekend, which Iran has reported did damage, but it did not come out. So that was symbolic too. As we all know, there's a lot of symbology these days. Trump claimed at around 1:15 a.m. that both sides had agreed to a Qatari-mediated ceasefire deal, which he said would take effect at 7 a.m. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi said there was no agreement, but affirmed that Iran would halt its military operations if Israel stopped its attacks on the country. It's like, we're not going to stop attacking Israel while they're still attacking us, Bob. That's not how shit works. Other reports dismiss the ceasefire announcement, referring to it as a form of deception. Trump's announcement coincided with massive Israeli attacks across Iran's capital. I think it's just wishful thinking on Trump's part, and if it actually happened, he would look like, see? He was like, I told you. It's just like, it's like Damone from Fast Times at Ridgemont High when he said, you put the vibe out to 1 million chicks, one of them's bound to respond. See? And that's the same thing. You tell enough lies, one of them sounds true enough that people go, see? I think that's what Trump does. Trump's announcement coincided with massive Israeli attacks across Iran's capital. In the final minutes before Trump's deadline for a cessation of hostilities, successive waves of Iranian ballistic missiles were launched towards Israel. Boom, boom, boom. Here's a little piece of Gaza for you, motherfuckers. Hebrew media initially reported that at least 8 Israelis were killed, but later reduced the death toll to 3. The direct impacts in the southern city of Beersheba also injured 22 people. Massive destruction was seen in video footage on social media. There's some more nice dust-covered buildings there. So this is from the Cradle. Israeli media reports said the number of wounded were pulled from under the rubble in Beersheba, Negev, after a building was targeted by an Iranian missile. Reports indicate there are critical injuries. It remains unclear whether the newly announced ceasefire will hold. No, hell no, it's not going to hold. I mean, like, traditionally, in order for it to be a real ceasefire, what's up, Willie? Good morning to you, sir. Hope you're doing well, my friend. I saw your little test there. I hope you got your chat situation figured out. I figured you may have just like accidentally clicked a box in your setup for YouTube and it did that. So anyway, hopefully if you don't get that figured out, let me know. We'll figure it out together. So that's what we do, folks. As a community, we help each other out. So yeah, this whole ceasefire with Israel thing was kind of funny. I saw some people last night going, "Man, this is bullshit." Of course, it's bullshit. At this point, we know we know all this is bullshit. If you just go in assuming that the majority of it's bullshit, or if not all of it is bullshit, if you go into that thinking that you're fine, right now, then you can work from a level of how much bullshit is being levied at you. Is it just a little bit of shit? Or are you getting the full meal deal? But you have to have that mindset of this is all bullshit. None of this is real. That kind of thing. Anyway, so see, and all of this is just theater, right? U.S. moved aircraft, military equipment from Qatar to Saudi Arabia before attacks, says source. Think they know in advance? The U.S. moved aircraft and heavy equipment from Qatar's Al Udeid base to stations in Saudi Arabia in the lead up to Iran's retaliatory strike. Should put that in quotes. An official from the region told Middle East Eye. The move, the official said, suggests that the U.S. believes Saudi Arabia would not be targeted by Iranian strikes and points to coordination with Iran to limit the fallout of the attack. U.S. and Iranian officials indirectly coordinated the attack, with Qatar acting as a intermediary. The official said the two sides engaged, with Qatar acting as a go-between on Sunday. The movement of U.S. assets to Saudi Arabia and reports of coordination point to an effort to de-escalate tensions by Iran. Oil prices plunged after the attack in a sign it was widely viewed as de-escalatory by the market. The international benchmark Brent crude was down 5.7% after the strike, trading at $71.11 per barrel. It's an odd number. Literally. The U.S. began evacuating Al Udeid last week, Arab and U.S. officials told Middle East Eye. The move, however, suggests that the U.S. had a good understanding of where Iran would potentially target U.S. assets. Al Udeid hosts roughly 10,000 U.S. soldiers and serves as the regional headquarters for CENTCOM. Trumpy confirmed a few hours after the attack that Iran had given prior notice, which he credited with preventing civilian casualties. Trump used the strike to call for de-escalation, saying he would ask Israel to stop its attacks on Iran also. So this just looks like say, okay, you hit us, owie, you got us back. All right, can we now let's talk. So everybody had to get their licks in, as it were. They've gotten it out of their system, and there will hopefully be no further hate. He wrote, I want to thank Iran for giving us early notice, which made it possible for no lives to be lost and nobody injured. I mean, if this is how you're going to settle shit, if you want to have TV wars instead of like actual people dying wars, I mean, if that's what it's got to, you got to have some sort of war to settle shit. Let's have those kind of wars. I'd rather see that than seeing people like getting murdered and little kids getting popped in the head. All right, let's just do that. I'm just saying. Iran can now proceed to peace and harmony in the region, and I will enthusiastically encourage Israel to do the same, he said. The U.S. has bases across the Gulf. Iran's decision to target Al Udeid could be a strategic by Tehran as it seeks to minimize blowback from the Gulf to its attack. Qatar and Iran share South Pars, the world's largest natural gas field. Doha has historically enjoyed more cordial relations with Tehran than Saudi Arabia and the UAE, billing itself as a mediator to regional conflicts. The Jean-Luc Picard, the Ambassador Spock, if you will. Saudi Arabia is further from Iran than Qatar and much bigger, making U.S. bases there a more difficult target. Saudi Arabia and Iran were engaged in simmering proxy conflicts. Simmering proxy conflicts, including in Yemen until recently. They have since engaged in a painstaking rapprochement. Iran's decision to target al-Udeid may be a sign that it was looking to limit blowback from Riyadh over any strikes. Qatar condemned Israel's attack as a flagrant violation of its sovereignty shortly after the strike. Yada, yada, yada. They got it. We got to say this shit, because that's what we do. Foreign Ministry spokesman Majed al-Ansari called for an immediate cessation of all military actions. Iran's Security Council said the attack was not against brotherly Qatar. This action does not pose any threat to the friendly and brotherly country Qatar and its noble people, and the Islamic Republic of Iran remains committed to maintaining and continuing warm and historic relations with Qatar, the council said in a statement. So they were like, look, Qatar, and you and I, we're boys, right? I know we're cool, but you got a little pimple there I had to pop. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying things had to be done in a delicate way. All right? Be glad that you didn't suffer any more than you did, is what they're saying. So for some of these youngsters today who just think that we've always hated Iran, and Iran's always hated us, that they're coming to get us in the night. They're going, boo, boo, I'm a crazy Iranian. I'll come up in your house. I'm going to eat all your furniture. All this shit. But really, I think it behooves us to take a look at a brief history of that relationship. This is through Al Jazeera. So, I thought this was a nice little timeline they put together. So this is the history of the U.S.-Iran relations from the 1953 regime change to Trump strikes. So, let's see. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. So it starts there. All right. So this is more like the adversary. They've always kind of not really been cool with each other, Israel and Iran. So Israel, which has long considered Iran a threat, launched unprecedented strikes across Iran last week after accusing the country of developing nuclear weapons, which even our own intelligence agencies here said was bullshit. Israeli claims have not been backed by any credible proof, of course, but Trump dragged the U.S. into the war following the Israeli strikes. On Sunday, the U.S. directly hit Iran in what the Trump administration called a highly sophisticated covert attack. I don't know about the sophisticated part. That involved more than 125 U.S. aircraft and 75 precision bombs. Washington said it devastated Iran's nuclear sites, but Tehran has warned it will retaliate, which it did. So here we go. So let's go back to 1953, right? 1953, U.S.-backed coup and reinstallation of the Shah. I remember the 79 stuff because it was on TV all the time. Tensions initially began brewing over the democratically elected Iranian Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh, his efforts to nationalize the Anglo-Iranian oil company, now BP. So they were going to nationalize the oil, right? The British colonial power controlled the majority stake in the joint venture company since oil was discovered in the early 1900s. Mossadegh's move to nationalize the company after his 1951 election angered the British. The U.S.'s Central Intelligence Agency, the spooks there, the CIA, supported the United Kingdom in engineering a coup and backing once deposed monarch Pahlavi back into power as the Shah. So that was 1953. In 1957, Atoms for Peace. The Shah's ambitions for a nuclear-powered Iran gained support from the U.S. and other Western allies. So this is when they wanted nuclear power, and the U.S. was like, okay, buddy, yes, you need matches today, my friend. You need this, you need straw. No, we just need nuclear-powered stuff. Both countries signed a nuclear agreement for the civilian use of nuclear power as part of the then U.S. President Dwight D. Eisenhower's Atoms for Peace program. A decade later, the U.S. provided Iran with a nuclear reactor and uranium to fuel it. The nuclear collaboration forms the basis for the current nuclear question. So then let's fast forward to 1979. That's when the Islamic Revolution happened. The overthrowing the Shah. While relations between Tehran and Washington flourished, Iranians groaned under the dictatorship of the Shah and resisted the perceived overreach of Western influence on their business. Revolutionary protests began rocking the country in late 1978 and forced the Shah to flee. In January 1979, exiled Islamic scholar Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini returned to rule the new Islamic Republic. I remember that dude. He was a scary looking dude too. That at least the U.S. propaganda made him look scary. With the dark eyes, like, I'm coming to eat your American babies. 1980, U.S. cuts diplomatic ties following the U.S.'s move to admit the Shah for cancer treatment after his exile. Iranian students broke into the U.S. embassy in Tehran and kidnapped 52 Americans for 444 days. Washington cut off diplomatic ties and imposed sanctions on the country. The Shah died in exile. This is where the whole thing with Reagan and the selling weapons to Iran in exchange, was it weapons for hostages, I think is what it was, with the Iran-Contra thing. Washington cut off diplomatic ties and imposed sanctions on the country. The Shah died in exile. And from 80 to 88, the U.S. backs Iraqi invasion. That's when Iraq invaded Iran. That was they should probably take a page out of that book of what not to do there. Following Iraq's invasion of Iran under Saddam Hussein, who was eager to push back against Khomeini's ideology, the U.S. sided with Iraq, deepening tensions between the two nations. The war lasted till 1988 and saw thousands die on both sides. Iraq also used chemical weapons on Iran. In 1984, sponsor of terror designation. Here we go. President Ronald Reagan officially designated Iran as a state sponsor of terror, later to be renamed the Axis of Evil. After a series of attacks in Lebanon where the U.S. had been drawn in after Israel invaded the country, in one attack on a military base in Beirut, 241 U.S. service members were killed. The U.S. blamed Hezbollah, a Lebanese Shia movement backed by Iran. Later, though, Reagan worked with Iran behind the scenes to free American hostages held by Hezbollah. As we said, the Iran-Contra thing. When it came to light, the Iran-Contra affair, as it was termed, was a huge scandal for Reagan. He didn't go to jail. Others went to jail for him, because the president's not going to jail. Fuck that. Everybody thought that Trump was going to go to jail. They ain't going to jail. That ain't happening. Even Nixon, he was going to jail. He wasn't going to jail. So 1988, Iran air flight shot down. Amid war tensions and even direct attacks on each other's military warships in the Gulf, a U.S. naval ship breached Iranian waters and fired at the civilian air flight IR-655 headed to Dubai on July 8th. All 290 people on board were killed. The U.S., which claimed it was a mistake, and oopsie sauce, that was my mistake. Oh, man, I'm such a butterfingers with these buttons. Did not formally apologize or claim responsibility, but paid families $61.8 million cash as compensation. That's what we do in the U.S. We don't claim responsibility. We just pay others to say that we did, but we didn't. Amazing, huh? 1995, tighter sanctions. Between 95 and 96, the U.S. imposed more sanctions. Billy Boy, his executive orders banned U.S. companies from dealing with Iran, while Congress passed a law penalizing foreign entities investing in the country's energy sector or selling Iran advanced weapons. The U.S. cited nuclear advancement and support of groups like Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, which later became the Islamic Jihad, for branding purposes, and one of the group members said they'd sue. 2002, 9/11. Hey, don't forget about 9/11 changing shit. Laney Peterson. What's up, Laney? Good morning to you, too. Following the 9/11 attacks on the U.S., President George W. Bush, in his State of the Union address, said Iran was part of an axis of evil. You going up our axis of evil, y'all? Alongside Iraq and North Korea at the time, Iran had been parlaying with the U.S. behind the scenes to target their mutual foes, the Taliban can in Afghanistan and Al-Qaeda. The cooperation was soured, and by the end of 2022, international observers noted highly enriched uranium in Iran, inviting more sanctions. Dun, dun, dun. 2013 Iran nuclear deal. Between 2013 and 2015, which would be 2014, President Barry Ortega, whatever his name is, began high-level talks with Iran. In 2015, Tehran agreed to the nuclear deal, formerly known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, the JCPOA, that would limit Iran's nuclear activities in exchange for an easing of sanctions. China, Russia, France, Germany, the UK, and the European Union were also party to the deal that capped Iran's enrichment at 3.67%. Then Trumpy pulls out giggity in 2018. Under Trump's first term, the U.S. unilaterally withdrew from the deal and slapped back sanctions against Iran. Trump and Israel had been critical of the deal. Iran also called off its commitments and began producing enriched uranium beyond the limits the deal had imposed. So they said, all right, well, fuck you too. We're just going to go back to doing what we're doing. IRGC leader assassinated. So, of course, during Trump's first term, the U.S. killed Iranian General Qasem Soleimani, the head of the elite Quds force of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, in Baghdad in a drone strike. A year earlier, the administration had named the Quds force a terrorist organization. Iran responded with strikes on U.S. assets in Iraq. So same deal here, right? They killed Soleimani. Iran struck some U.S. assets in the area, and I think they maybe took out a couple people. So that, it's this tit for tat thing. This dance, right? Because when you got nukes in the mix, you got to dance lightly. So fast forward to this year in March, Trump shot off a letter to Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei proposing new negotiations on a nuclear deal with a deadline of 60 days, but Khamenei rejected the offer, saying the U.S. is not seeking negotiations with Iran, but rather imposing demands on it. Talks started unofficially in Oman and Italy, with Muscat acting as the mediator. Trump claimed his team was very close to a deal after several rounds of talks and warned Israel against strikes. Tehran, too, expressed optimism but insisted on the right to enrich uranium, a sticking point in the talks. Israel launched strikes across Iran a day before the sixth round of the Iran-U.S. talks. And then, of course, the U.S. bombed 3 key nuclear facilities in Iran, citing security concerns and the defense of Israel. And this fucking jackass right here, probably going to get everybody killed. Pete Hegseth, ladies and gentlemen. Hegseth, stage left. So there's a little background on how all this got heated up with Iran, and how Iran has been a victim a lot of times of the propaganda. What's up, John? Good morning, sir. Good to see you. I think we're in the final throes of the heat wave. I blame you, John, for all this heat out here in Chicago. So come on, cool it off, baby. I know you can't, but try. Try for the rest of us. Yeah. So speaking of which, so they said, fuck your ceasefire. And Israel says it fired 200 munitions at Iran in strikes on Monday. This is from Dave DeCamp over at antiwar.com. If you want their news feed, it's news.antiwar.com. But check out the whole site. Good independent journalism over there, and good aggregation of good news sites. They do include mainstream media sites, as I do often, but mostly I do nuts and bolts. I'm not going to sit here and try and explain somebody's take on a certain story, not in this format anyway. So, So if you got a problem with these people, you let me know. And if you have a problem with any of the sources, the sources that I use, all the links are down below of most of the ones I use. But let me know in the comments. You're like, hey, look, I got a problem with these people. You know, so and so is the owner of this. You know, if you got some background on it, let me know, because I always want to know about that stuff. The Israeli military said yesterday that its Air Force fired 200 munitions into Iran after a day of heavy attacks across the country. As the death toll in the Israeli bombing campaign is nearing 1,000, according to numbers from U.S.-based rights groups. The human rights activists in Iran, which is very critical of Iran's government, said that as of Sunday night, Israeli strikes on Iran since June 13th have killed at least 950 people, including 380 civilians, 253 military personnel, and 317 that have yet to be classified. Another 3,450 people have been injured, including 1,564 civilians, 248 military personnel, and 1,638 who haven't been classified. The HRAI's news agency, Hrana, said that over the past 10 days, Israeli strikes in Iran have targeted infrastructure, military and civilian facilities, residential and industrial areas in 25 provinces. Israeli strikes on Monday included the bombing of the Evin prison. I keep wanting to say Elvin, and I know it's not Elvin. Of the Evin prison in Tehran, which is known to hold political prisoners and dissidents. According to the Times of Israel, the strike was apparently intended to allow the detainees to escape the facility. The Hrana reported that the Israeli attack struck the prison's main entrance gate and a judiciary building located within the compound. Several Iranian soldiers were reported killed in the strikes, and several prison staff and inmates were reported to be wounded. The Israeli military also claimed that it targeted facilities in Tehran belonging to Iran's IRGC. Iran has also continued to fire missiles at Israel and strike targets inside the country. It also launched a retaliatory attack on a U.S. base, as we said, in Qatar, in response to the U.S. bombing of its nuclear facilities. War never changes. That fucking video game was right, man. Goddamn Fallout. I'm just saying. These fuckers. Wait, what happened? I knew I skipped over one. All right, look at you trying to be cheeky. Well, if Israel was relying on tourism, they could probably forget that for a while. As thousands flee Israel, as Western states scramble to extract citizens, we gotta get the hell out of here. As of yesterday, more than 11,000 foreign nationals have been evacuated from Israel as its war on Iran enters its second week, prompting dozens of governments to launch emergency operations under closed airspace and intensifying missile fire. Germany, the UK, we'll talk more about them coming up. Australia, France, the US, and several EU states have mobilized military aircraft, chartered civilian transport, and overland convoys to extract their citizens, many of whom were forced to cross into Jordan, Egypt, or Azerbaijan by bus or on foot before boarding outbound flights. The UK Foreign Office has confirmed plans for a chartered flight out of Tel Aviv, while Germany has already flown out over 400 nationals. France, Italy, and others are coordinating similar extractions through neighboring countries as Israel's skies remain unsafe for civilian travel. The U.S. Embassy in Tel Aviv has organized 6 evacuation flights and cruise ship departures for more than 6,500 U.S. citizens who registered to leave. I want to be on a cruise ship. You'd have to be on a cruise ship with Mike Huckabee, I bet. Ew, no, thank you. That should be punishment somehow. Australia has evacuated 1,200 citizens and deployed military personnel and aircraft under Operation Beach. Beach, B-E-E-C-H, not bitch. Beach, please. Irish Foreign Minister Simon Harris confirmed that 18 Irish citizens have been evacuated from Israel and Iran, expressing gratitude to EU partners for their assistance with bowls of Lucky Charms and bars of Irish Spring, with two deodorants and a fine fresh scent. Romania has removed over 100 people, they weren't even their own people. They just took random people. No, I'm kidding. As Serbia evacuated 38 citizens and is preparing further extractions from more than 2,500 stranded nationals. Portugal has taken out 69 individuals. Nice. Ukraine 176 and Japan 87, while Greece, Slovakia, and the Czech Republic, Bulgaria, South Korea, and Taiwan have also completed evacuations, with many involving foot crossings, bus convoys, military transport under fire, and, of course, Star Trek transporter beams. On yesterday, nearly 10 days after shutting its airspace following strikes on Iran, Israel reopened outbound flights from Tel Aviv's Ben Gurion Airport, with departures capped at 50 passengers per plane, with priority given to medical, humanitarian, and national security cases, also those with common sense who want to get the fuck out of Crazyville. All flights operate from Terminal 3 under strict regulations as authorities warn the airport remains a potential target. While El Al is rare, and Arkia resumed limited inbound flights last week. Foreign nationals had previously relied on overland or maritime exits through Egypt, Jordan, and Azerbaijan. Though extractions from Iran are also underway, the bulk of international evacuation efforts remains focused on Israel, where the collapse of basic security assumptions has become increasingly difficult for its foreign allies to deny. They're saying, man, it is not safe here. Girlfriend, we have got to get the fuck. You know what I'm saying? We just got, girl. We can't stay here anymore. They're going to come and get us. We're so itty bitty. You're like, well, how did Israel get away with a lot of this shit in Iran? Well, their sneaky little Mossad characters were over there wreaking havoc. Desperation. You wished it tasted as good as shit. Plug. Iran confiscates thousands of small drones as crackdown on Mossad cells intensifies. There's the police. Iranian authorities have continued to carry out a nationwide crackdown on Mossad agents and spies behind sabotage in the country, including scores of arrests, executions, and the confiscation of thousands of small drones. Iran's judiciary said that Mohammed Amin Mahdavi Shayesta was hanged this morning for intelligence cooperation with the Zionist regime, one day after the execution of a man named Majid Mosayabi, who was accused of seeking to provide sensitive information to the Mossad. The new execution coincided with news that 10,000 drones used by agents inside Iran have been confiscated by authorities since the start of Israel's war on June 13th. Damn, 10,000 drones. These were small drones used by agents for espionage and sabotage, according to Iran's Fars news agency. So it's just like the little things you see with the GoPros on there. And then there's this squiggle, 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 squiggle. No offense, I can't read squiggle. Iranian air defenses have been busy intercepting not only Israeli army drones, but also drones launched from within Iran. Prior to the start of the Israeli war, the Mossad had established drone production sites and launch bases, which were activated on June 13th to complement Tel Aviv's campaign, according to several recent reports. 1 week ago, Iranian authorities raided a 3-story building on the outskirts of Tehran, uncovering a facility for assembling drones and explosives. In the last few days alone, dozens of people have been arrested. On Sunday, Iranian police detained 53 people accused of operating drones to film public and strategic sites in the southern province of Fars, Tasnim news agency reported. The Khuzestan prosecutor's office announced 2 days earlier that 54 people were accused of links to Israeli intelligence. The individuals were, quote, were involved in supporting and gathering information for the enemy, propagandizing as well as spreading falsehoods and rumors with the aim of damaging the country's internal security and disrupting the psychological security of society, the office said, according to the Fars news agency. That's harsh. The psychological security of society. Jesus. Iran's Supreme National Security Council had issued a deadline for all agents linked to Israel to come forward and turn themselves in. The deadline expired on June 22nd. After the end of this deadline, those who are caught with drones, equipment, weapons, or any other means for espionage or military purposes will be immediately dealt with the most severe punishment, the council said 3 days ago. I'm pretty sure that means rat-a-tat-tat, squiggle, 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 squiggle. Hashtag squiggle. So yeah, you'd heard about how they get those drones in there. Well, they made them. They made them inside Iran. So that's something else Iran security has to look at too. They're like, how these people getting in here and doing this shit? So Putin weighed in and he said, this ain't cool, guys. Putin tells Iranian foreign minister no justification for a U.S.-Israeli war, offers support to Tehran. So there's the Iranian guy and the Russian guy. They're doing a little five-finger Charlie down there. Russian President Vladimir Putin said during a meeting with Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi on June 23rd that the U.S.-Israeli war on Iran has no justification, 1 day after Washington's attack on Iranian nuclear sites. This is an absolutely unprovoked act of aggression against Iran. It has no basis or justification. Our position on the current events is well known. It has been clearly articulated by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs on behalf of Russia, Putin stated. For our part, we are making efforts to help the Iranian people, he added. The president said Araghchi's visit to Russia will allow us to discuss and consider how to get out of the current situation in the region. During the meeting, Araghchi said that Tehran considers the actions of the U.S. and Israel against Iran illegitimate, adding that defending the Islamic Republic is legitimate. We also wanted to thank Russia for its strong condemnation of these actions. Russia stands today on the side of history and international law, and the Iranian Supreme Leader, Ali Khamenei, and the Iranian President, Mr. Masoud Pezeshkian, asked me to convey their best wishes to you, and I hope that today we can discuss all issues related to this event, he added. Oh, and here's some nice chocolates that my wife baked. You'll really like it. I hope you don't have any nut allergies because it's loaded with pecans. And trust me, you want those pecans in there. That flavor pops. Wait, what? What happened? According to an Arab diplomatic source cited by Al Jadid, Putin is hoping to persuade Washington to back a UN Security Council resolution for a ceasefire, which would help him convince Iran to refrain from responding to the U.S. strike, which they already did, return to the negotiating table, and agree to transfer the high-grade uranium enrichment to Russian territory. Ooh. We will take high-grade uranium, yes? Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov told reporters on Monday that Moscow has offered to mediate and that any additional assistance would depend on what Iran needs. Boy, the U.S. would love that. The meeting between Putin and Araghchi came 1 day after a session at the UN Security Council initiated at the request of Iran. During the session, Russia, China, and Pakistan submitted a draft resolution calling for an immediate and unconditional ceasefire and condemning attacks on peaceful nuclear facilities under the supervision of the IAEA in Iran, which is basically a paper doll. Russia and China strongly condemned the U.S. attack on Iran's nuclear facilities, which took place hours before the UNSC session. U.S. credibility was damaged both as a country and as a participant in any international negotiation. That's according to China's UN ambassador Fu Kong. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said the bombing of Iranian nuclear facilities by the U.S. marks a perilous turn. Iran's UN representative Saeed Iravani said Tehran reserves its legitimate right to defend itself, and respond, throwing it back. You got to have one person say, hey, we're just trying to defend ourselves, bruh. To Washington's attack on the Fordow nuclear site and others in Iran. Russia, China, and Pakistan have requested that UNSC members share their comments by Monday evening. A resolution requires a minimum of 9 votes in favor and no vetoes by the U.S., France, Britain, Russia, or China in order to pass. But guess who's going to veto that? 2 words, U-N-S. That would be us, the U.S., right? So, yeah. It's the thing, the usual thing, you know, when they bombed Tel Aviv, they'd be like, oh, the horror. Let me clutch my pearls. Everybody clutches pearls. It's war. You know, Iran's trying to make it as pleasant as possible, apparently, but I don't know how long that's going to last. Probably not that long. To be honest with you. Meanwhile, the U.S. said, fuck it. U.S. evacuates embassy in Lebanon as Israel steps up strikes there. The U.S. has ordered all non-essential personnel. This says personal. I'm pretty sure that's personnel and families to leave Lebanon, with the State Department saying the decision was based on the increasingly uncertain stability in the region that they helped create themselves. The concern with Lebanon is the risk of it getting dragged into the ongoing Israeli and U.S. war against Iran, and given the ever-growing number of Israeli strikes inside Lebanon, it seems increasingly unlikely that Hezbollah will continue to sit on the sidelines. Hezbollah and Israel just fought a brief war late last year, and though Hezbollah hasn't attacked Israel since November, Israel has continued to launch thousands of attacks on Lebanon since then. Israel has also put the army on a higher level of alert at the border, citing the potential for attacks by Hezbollah because of the Iran war. Israel continued carrying out strikes against southern Lebanon overnight and into Monday, hitting a van in Kfar Akila that was carrying scrap metal and targeting the outskirts of a village in Marjayun district. Israel also targeted sites north of the Litani River, claiming they hit Hezbollah rocket sites, with no proof. Israeli officials didn't offer evidence that's what the targets were, but said their presence violated the understandings between Israel and Lebanon. Even if the sites are rocket-related, it's not clear they would have been in violation anyhow, since they were north of the Litani River. The ceasefire only mandates the removal of Hezbollah facilities south of the river, though, again, they also mandated a cessation of Israeli attacks on Lebanon, which plainly hasn't happened. And while Lebanon is trying to stay out of the Iran conflict, they're seeing increasing spillover, including Israeli interceptors landing on Lebanese soil and setting fires totally unrelated to the ongoing Israeli attacks on Lebanon. That was from Jason Ditz over there at antiwar.com. The rest of the guys are a little more nuts and bolts. Jason likes to put a little spice in the hamburger. You know what I mean? So yeah, good reporting there from antiwar.com. Israel, the safe haven for Jews around the world. That's what we've all been sold, this bill of goods. For 70 odd years now. It's a protection, it's a haven. But actually, it's quite not that, actually, at all. According to the UK, as they evacuate citizens from Israel as reverse exodus exposes Zionist myth of safe haven. The UK government has announced plans to operate a chartered flight next week for British nationals wishing to leave Israel and the illegally occupied Palestinian territories amid spiraling regional tensions following U.S. airstrikes on nuclear facilities in Iran. The Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office, the FCDO, confirmed that British citizens, along with their immediate non-British family members, may apply for seats on the flight from Tel Aviv, which will be allocated on a need basis. Officials warn that the ability to operate such flights remains subject to sudden changes due to the volatile security situation. Among those being flown out are Britons who reside not only in Israel but in illegal settlements within the occupied West Bank. These settlements are a central feature of Israel's apartheid regime, condemned under international law. Britain's Jewish citizens are legally permitted by Israel to live and build on stolen Palestinian land, while Palestinians themselves face demolition orders, settler violence, military occupation, and denial of basic rights. Britain also does not sanction its own citizens that reside in illegal settlements in the occupied Palestinian territories. The safety of British nationals in Israel and the occupied Palestinian territories continues to be our utmost priority, said a government spokesperson, while confirming that additional flights may be arranged depending on demand and conditions. Meanwhile, other governments, including the U.S., have launched their own evacuation missions from Israel, adding to the growing concern within Zionist circle of Jews fleeing the occupation state. Thousands of Jews have left Israel following the October 7th attack. You remember those early on, all those people getting the hell out of Dodge. This so-called reverse exodus has shattered the Zionist myth of Israel as a safe haven for Jews. Ironically, more Jews have died in Israel than anywhere else worldwide since the Second World War, highlighting that amid endless occupation and wars of aggression, Jews may be least safe within Israel itself. Yeah, so... And there's talk of like, how long will Israel last? You know, as long as the money keeps flowing, you know, that's the thing. It's like, that's the only thing that's really keeping it afloat now is the support that Israel has from the United States and other, you know, and other members of the West, right? So as long as that money keeps flowing, that boat will still be floating, no matter how many leaky holes it has in it. So a lot of people have been talking about this, about Iran going, hey, wait a minute, you know, we got this thing called the Strait of Hormuz. And, you know, if we, it's very tiny. If we closed it off, that would fuck up some shit real bad, right? So guess what? The Iran parliament backs closing the Strait of Hormuz. And there it is right there. This is the little things that they go, poop, no, sir, no, ma'am, you can't come past here. Iran Parliament approved on Sunday the closure of the Strait of Hormuz and granted the final decision in this measure to the Supreme National Security Council, the country's highest security body, Iranian Press TV reported. Meanwhile, Ismail Kosari, a deputy commander of the Iranian Guard, Revolutionary Guard, told the Young Journalists Club, that closing the strait is on the table and a decision will be made if necessary. For his part, Hussein Shariat Madari, managing editor of Kayhan newspaper and a confidant of Iranian Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, said after the U.S. attack on the Fordow nuclear facility, it is Tehran's turn, calling for 3 retaliatory measures for the U.S. strike on Iranian nuclear facilities. Well, one was in Qatar. That may have been it. We must, without hesitation or delay, launch missile strikes on the U.S. naval fleet as a first step, a telegram message from the Kayhan newspaper quoted Shariat Madari as saying. He also called for closing the Strait of Hormuz and preventing the passage of American, British, German, and French ships. So this is the Strait of Hormuz right here, this itty-bitty thing, so that if people want to get, you know, stuff up to Iraq and this area here, they have to go through here, right? Otherwise, they'd have to go all the way over here. And you can see like how much oil goes through there. Almost 30% of global seaborne trade goes through there. 20% of global liquid natural gas trade. Yeah. So it's find out time. The fucking around is over. They've already fucked around, and now the find out portion of the show is happening, and I think Trump knows this as well. As drill baby drill, I can see Russia from my porch. Trump pressures U.S. firms as tanker stall at Strait of Hormuz. What a shame, right? Look at that. That looks like from There Will Be Blood. You have a milkshake. It brings all the boys to the yard. Their life is better than yours. Yesterday, Trumpy warned about rising oil prices in a post targeting energy producers, accusing them of playing into the enemy's hands. Hours later, he urged the Department of Energy to immediately ramp up domestic production using his signature phrase, drill, baby, drill, that he stole from what's-her-face. Everyone keep oil prices down. I'm watching. You're playing right into the hands of the enemy. Don't do it. To the Department of Energy, drill, baby, drill. And I mean now, drill, baby. Get down in those panties. Wait, what? Trump's warnings came hours after at least 2 supertankers reversed course near the Strait of Hormuz on June 22nd, according to tracking data from Kepler and LSEG. The Coswisdom Lake, chartered by China's Unipec, and the South Loyalty, scheduled to load Iraqi crude, both halted and redirected outside the strait before resuming partial routes. The disruption pushed oil prices to 5-month highs and triggered widespread delays across shipping lanes. See, folks? You're like, how do I change? How do I change this evil, evil world? I sure wish I knew how to change this evil, evil world. You shut shit down. That's how you do it. And you shut the right shit down. So they said, no dice, we're going around. The movement formed part of a wider pattern of avoidance. Loaded and empty tanker transits through the strait dropped by 27% and 32% respectively over the past week, according to Sentosa shipbrokers. Several tankers anchored near Fujairah or veered toward Oman's coast, while ship owners, including Japanese firms Nippon Yusen and Mitsui OSK Lines, Mitsui, instructed crews to minimize time spent in the Gulf. Trump's back-to-back messages came as the White House intensified its push to boost fossil fuel output under a declared national emergency or national energy emergency. His government is moving to dismantle environmental regulations, accelerate permitting, and expand drilling across federal lands. We have the largest amount of oil and gas of any country on the planet Earth and beyond, and we're going to use it, Trump declared earlier this year. Chevron, one of the U.S.'s largest producers, reported a 19% production increase in 2024. Its executives cautiously welcomed Trump's moves, but warned that without congressional action to overhaul permitting laws, infrastructure delays could limit supply increases. Market volatility and legal opposition continue to complicate efforts to increase production. Iran's parliament has approved a measure to close the Strait of Hormuz pending clearance from higher levels. While the strait remains open for now, the threat alone has added to the global uncertainty and intensified pressure on U.S. producers to flood the market. The threat alone, little trickles of pee-pee in the pants for the threat alone. We could shut things down. You know what's going to shut things down? It's fucking heat, man. It's what is it now? It's actually not bad. I think we're on the tail end of it today. 82 degrees here, and the humidity is not quite as stifling. But yeah, this has been a little bit of a deal. Dangerous heat wave grips U.S. with record temperatures. Tens of millions across the Midwest and the Mid-Atlantic are under heat alerts as of yesterday, as the dangerous heat wave that began over the weekend continues to move through the region. The rare June heat wave broke about 20 records Sundays and expected to break more this week. According to the Weather Channel, Mitchell, South Dakota broke its daily high Saturday when temperatures climbed to 104 degrees Fahrenheit, smashing its previous record of 101. South Dakota getting triple digits like that. Records were also set Saturday across Wyoming and Wisconsin, according to the channel. Across the Midwest to the East Coast, 160 million people were under heat alerts yesterday. Extreme heat warnings have been issued for 75 million people in nearly a dozen major cities, including here in Chicago. Boston, New York City, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Detroit, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C. Because fuck you, Cleveland. By midday, heat index values what conditions feel like when humidity and air temperatures are combined. In several places in North Carolina and Virginia had already topped 110 degrees Fahrenheit. So a little bit of crotch pot cooking where Willie's at. Chicago up to Boston could experience heat indexes of 100 to 110 degrees. Hot temperatures, oppressive humidity, and very light winds are expected today, leading to dangerous levels of heat, as according to the National Weather Service in Boston said on the tweeters, said today will be the hottest day of the stretch, according to the agency. Air temperatures in many areas could pass the century mark, and it may feel like the 110s in some areas, the agency said. This is a dangerous level of heat with no significant relief at night. Crackhead McGee, Eric Adams in New York City urged residents to take precautions. Stay out of the subways, we'll cap you. Our first heat wave of the summer is here, and it's so important that New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs take care of themselves over the next few days. Several days of extreme heat. Yeah, okay. While it's difficult to make direct links between individual extreme weather events and climate change, studies have shown that global warming is making heat waves more frequent, more intense, and longer lasting. The trend is particularly concerning for people who work outdoors, children, the elderly, and others who are most at risk of heat-related illness and death. Relief from the sweltering temperatures will come tomorrow in the Midwest and Thursday in the Northeast when the heat dome starts to weaken. Oh, it's the heat dome. No wonder. In other parts of the country, severe storms will impact regions from northern Kansas to Michigan, bringing damaging winds, large hail, and possible tornadoes. From West Texas to southern Wisconsin, the storms will bring a risk of flashing floods. So another crazy fucking summer. And the heat's already starting in June. This is the kind of heat that you expect to get like in like July, August, you know. But surprise, it's a little early this year. Yay, Christmas. So speaking of Crackhead McGee over there in New York, they're at the polls today in New York for the Democratic mayoral primary there. And polls show Mamdani is beating Cuomo. New poll results released yesterday show State Assembly member Zoran Mamdani narrowly ahead of former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo in the city's Democratic mayoral primary, which takes place today and will be conducted via ranked choice voting. So you put your list of candidates in order, and then they get voted on that way instead of the old way. Early voting in the race began on June 14th and has far exceeded early voting turnout from the previous Democratic mayoral primary in 2021, though that contest was impacted by COVID. The final Emerson College polling picks 11. The Hill survey of the primary race shows that Cuomo leads Mamdani 35% to 32% within the plus or minus 3.4 margin of error. Percent margin of error when voters are asked about their top pick overall. However, when the two face off in a ranked choice voting simulation, Mamdani, a Democratic socialist, wins with an outright majority in the 8th round with 52% to Cuomo's 48%, according to the poll. Margin of error for the final round is plus or minus 3.6%. So you're talking about a 4-point swing there. On the day before the election, we stand on the verge of toppling a political dynasty and winning a city we can afford, but we can only do it with you, Mamdani wrote on Monday, referencing the poll. The only other candidate who notched above 10% is New York City Comptroller Brad Lander, who secured 12.8% when voters were asked to name their top pick in the race. He was recently arrested, we told you about this, by federal agents at an ICE court in Lower Manhattan while escorting an individual out of said ICE court. In New York City's ranked choice voting system, which is used for certain elections, including primary and special elections for mayor, Voters rank multiple candidates on their ballots. If no candidate receives more than 50% of first choice votes, the candidate with the fewest votes is eliminated, and the votes that went to the candidate went to that candidate are reallocated to the voter's second choice. That distribution of votes repeats in subsequent rounds until one candidate wins an outright majority or there are only two candidates remaining. Over 5 months, Mamdani's support has surged from 1% to 32%, while Cuomo finishes near where he began, said Spencer Kimball, executive director of Emerson College Polling, in a statement published yesterday. In the ranked choice simulation, Mamdani gets 18 points compared to Cuomo's 12, putting him ahead in the final round for the first time in an Emerson poll. Cuomo has been the consistent frontrunner in the contest, though some recent polling shows Mamdani eating into his lead or pulling ahead. And that's due to the Democratic machine, political machine in New York. It's powerful, right? And they're old school, so of course they're going to back Cuomo. Although Mamdani might be some sort of AOC distraction type thing too. I'm not saying he's a bad dude or anything. I'm just saying, be skeptical. Don't have any heroes. This is an outlier. Every other credible poll in this election, including two released last week, has shown Governor Cuomo with a double-digit lead, which is exactly where this election will end tomorrow. This is yesterday. Between now and then, we will continue to fight for every vote, like he will fight for every New Yorker as mayor, blah, blah, blah. Like he did as governor. Ask those people in the old folks' home about that. In a Marist poll published last week, Cuomo broke above the 50% threshold in the 7th round of ranked choice voting. Mamdani has become a viable contender in the race, in part because of an impressive ground game and his high number of individual small dollar donations. The campaign has tapped into people's belief that things could genuinely be better. The context of Trump is a part of that, where people are feeling in a very dark place politically and feeling the necessity of getting involved, said one Mamdani canvasser who spoke to the American Prospect. Mamdani is running on hope, possibility, and joy. At least it's not hope and change. That would be a little too on the nose. We really could have a better society and a better city, and I think that has spoken deeply to people. Well, you'll still have to contend with a Democratic city council that's going to oppose you at every turn. But, good on you. Good luck. Volunteers with this campaign have knocked on over 1 million doors around the city, according to his campaign website. And nearly 16,000 individual donors have contributed a donation of less than $100, according to the Financial Times. Cuomo has amassed a little over 1,000 donations from individual donors who gave less than $100 per the outlet. Cuomo has benefited from backers supporting him through super political action committees, or also known as super PACs, which are not limited in how much they raise, though they are barred from donating directly to a political candidate. According to the Financial Times, pro-Cuomo super PACs have poured in unprecedented $27 million into the race. When it comes to high-profile political endorsements, Cuomo has the backing of several establishment Democratic figures. Here you go. All your favorites, including former President Bill Clinton. I sure do. I do. He loves pussy just like I do, so I got to support him. And U.S. Representative Jim Clyburn, the Obama phone call guy. Meanwhile, Mamdani has earned the endorsement of posers AOC and Bernie Sanders. And we have a little poll here in the thing, if I can get to it. So this is with 20 votes right now. Who's going to win the New York City Democratic mayoral primary? 20% of you say Cuomo, 20 of you say Mamdani, none of you said Adams, and the other 60% said other, or I don't give a shit. And I'm pretty sure that the majority of that 60% is the I don't give a shit part. Just saying, if I was a betting man. Hey, you remember the Senate parliamentarian, that was always getting up and, You know, Bernie was like, "Oh, we can't do anything. We can't do anything. This parliamentarian's busting our balls over here. They keep busting our balls with this parliamentarian." You're like, eh. So, and in the past, presidents have just fired him. But now the Senate parliamentarian is back with a brand new invention, just like Vanilla Ice Baby. As the Senate parliamentarian blocks Republican attacks on SNAP, CFPB in reconciliation bill. Oh, the old parliamentarian, right? Democratic senators on Saturday applauded the news that several of the Republican Party's proposals in Trumpy's domestic spending bill must be struck from the legislation, potentially protecting millions of Americans from cuts to crucial nutrition assistance and the elimination of federal consumer protections. As much as Senate Republicans would prefer to throw out the rule book and advance their conservative families lose and billionaires win agenda, this process has rules, and Democrats are making sure those rules are enforced, said Senator Jeff Merkley out of Oregon, ranking member of the Senate Budget Committee. Senate parliamentarian Elizabeth McDonough ruled late Friday that a measure pushing some of the cost of the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, that's SNAP, onto the states should be struck from the bill, along with a provision barring undocumented immigrants from receiving SNAP benefits. McDonough has been analyzing the legislation to ensure its provisions comply with the Byrd Rule. The rule requires that measures included in reconciliation bills, which can be passed with a simple majority rather than a 60-vote threshold, are directly related to budget matters. Republicans have pushed the SNAP provision to partially cover the cost of extending massive tax cuts for corporations and the wealthiest Americans. Senator Amy Klobuchar, the human handkerchief there in Minnesota there, ranking member of the Senate Committee on Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry, said McDonough had made clear that Senate Republicans cannot use their partisan budget to shift major nutrition assistance to the states that would have inevitably led to major cuts. Klobuchar called on Republicans to work with the Democratic Party to lower costs for Americans and pass a bipartisan farm bill that works for all farmers in rural America, yada, yada, yada. The Republican who chairs Klobuchar's committee, Senator John Boozman, Republican out of Arkansas, suggested Republicans would look for other ways to cut nutrition assistance, and that more than 40 million Americans, including 8% of Boozman's own constituents, rely on. Yeah, they're always doing that. They're always fucking over their own people down south there. Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana. If Republicans fail to strip out provisions that are rejected by McDonough, the GOP could be forced to find at least 60 votes to support the budget bill. Earlier this week, McDonough rejected a provision put forward by Senator Tim Scott, you know that guy, that would cap the funding of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, the CFPB, at 0% of the Federal Reserve's total operating budget, effectively gutting the agency that has returned tens of billions of dollars to Americans, allegedly, who have been defrauded by banks and other corporations. The Senate parliamentarian has begun providing guidance that certain provisions in the Republicans' One Big Beautiful Betrayal will be subject to the Byrd Rule, ultimately meaning they will need to be stripped from the bill or altered to comply with the rules of reconciliation, said Merkley. We will be fighting this bill every single day until Republicans bring it to the floor or until our corporate masters tell us otherwise. The snake herself, Senator Elizabeth Warren, who pushed for the creation of the CFPB, remember that? Said Scott's proposal was a reckless, dangerous attack on consumers and would lead to more Americans being tricked and trapped by giant financial institutions and put the stability of our entire financial system at risk, all to hand out tax breaks to billionaires. Those paddles! Democrats fought back, and we will keep fighting back against this ugly bill. I figured I'd end on a high note there and not bring the voice back there. Also rejected by McDonough were a provision aimed at reducing the pay of Federal Reserve staff and one that would repeal emission standards on vehicles starting in 2027. On Saturday, McDonough was still considering a measure that would block states from regulating artificial intelligence for a decade. Where's this bitch been? Where's this parliamentarian? Now, see, technically, if Trump don't like what this chick's doing, all he has to do is just fire her. She's not appointed or anything. I don't think so. It's not like he just like you're fired, and then he'll get somebody else in there to do it because that's what Bush Jr. did. Actually, what Jr. did. He didn't like what the parliamentarian was doing, so he fired her. You got some more good news for Trumpy from the Supreme Court. Supreme Court allows Trump to swiftly deport certain immigrants to third countries. Where are we at here? How's everybody doing? Anybody sneak in here? Who ain't sneakers? Who snuck in here? The fuck snuck in here? I think we're okay. Yeah, we still got a while to go. We still got a long way to go, y'all. A short time to get there. We're eastbound. Watch old bandit run. So the Supreme Court allows Trump to swiftly deport certain immigrants to third countries. The Supreme Court made it easier Monday for the Trump administration to deport convicted criminals to third countries to which they have no previous connection. In a brief unsigned order that did not explain its reasoning, the court put on hold a federal judge's ruling that said those affected nationwide should have a, quote, meaningful opportunity to bring claims that they would be at risk of torture, persecution, or death if they were sent to countries the administration has made deals with to receive deported immigrants. As a result, the administration will be able to try to quickly remove immigrants to such third countries, including South Sudan. Affected immigrants can still attempt to bring individual claims. The ramifications of the Supreme Court's order will be horrifying. It strips away critical due process protections that have been protecting our class members from torture and death. The habeas corpus is kind of, once that went away, that was the thing. Said Trina Realmuto, executive director of the National Immigration Litigation Alliance, one of the groups that brought the legal challenge. Tricia McLaughlin, a spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security, said in a statement that the decision was a victory for the safety and security of the American people. She also criticized the Biden administration, of course, saying its immigration policies allowed too many migrants into the country. Although he was deporting them left and right, too. DHS can now execute its lawful authority and remove illegal aliens to a country willing to accept them, McLaughlin said. Fire up the deportation planes. I can't really fire up. Whoa, what the hell? Didn't like that. Fire. Why do you keep doing that? It won't let me highlight it because it's so ridiculous. The three liberal justices on the conservative majority court all dissented. Justice Sonia Sotomayor wrote in a dissenting opinion that the court had stepped in to grant the government emergency relief from an order it had repeatedly defied. She said the court was rewarding lawlessness by allowing the Trump administration to violate immigrants' due process rights. The fact that thousands will suffer violence in far-flung locales is less important to the conservative majority than the remote possibility that the judge had exceeded his authority, Sotomayor said. Massachusetts-based U.S. District Judge Brian Murphy, who has come under heavy fire from MAGA World for his decisions in the case, later clarified that people should have at least 10 days to bring a claim. As Sotomayor referred to, Murphy recently said the administration had violated his previous order by flying 8 migrants to South Sudan. The men are being held in a U.S. facility in Djibouti while the litigation continues. The unnamed plaintiffs, Murphy wrote in his original April decision, are merely seeking an opportunity to explain why such a deportation will likely result in their persecution, torture, and or death. All those potentially affected by the litigation are already subject to deportation but cannot be sent to their countries of origin. Murphy's rulings, like other cases that have arisen as a result of the Trump administration's hardline immigration policy, focus solely on what legal process they require or they receive before they can be deported. In his order, required detainees to be given notice if the government intends to send them to entirely different countries, to their countries of origin, or to alternative countries that the government had indicated they could be sent to. Solicitor General D. John Sauer had complained in a court filing that Murphy's decisions imposed an onerous set of procedures that encroached on the president's power to conduct foreign policy. He said the government wishes to deport some of the worst, which is why their home countries are often unwilling to take them back. Persuading third countries to accept criminally convicted immigrants in particular requires sensitive diplomacy, which involves negotiations and the balancing of other foreign policy interests, he added. Lawyers for the 4 lead plaintiffs identified by their initials said in court papers that Murphy's injunction merely provides a basic measure of fairness to ensure the government is following the law. The plaintiffs identified in the lawsuit are from Cuba, Honduras, Ecuador, and Guatemala. Under immigration law, the government can deport people to third countries only if it is impracticable, inadvisable, or impossible to send them either to their home countries or previous designated alternative countries, the plaintiffs' lawyers added. The Guatemalan plaintiff, identified as OCG, yeah, you know me, is a gay man who the plaintiffs say was quickly deported to Mexico this year, even though it was not previously designated as a country he could be sent to. OCG had said that was kidnapped. They were kidnapped and raped in Mexico last year, or he was. Mexican government sent him to Guatemala, where he was until recently in hiding. On June 4th, the Trump administration returned him to the U.S. So this whole third country situation thing, right? That they're able to do this is scary, right? You know, even as somebody who was born here, I got a birth certificate, I got all that, I'm scared, you know, because these motherfuckers, man, that's how they're trying to get everybody, they're trying to control them. Peace Stuff, what's up? Good to see you. ICE must deport all Zionists from the U.S. soils now. Yes, I agree with that. I'd buy that for $1. Well, they're finally pushing back in Cali against these weirdo masks. I think Kevin was talking about this on Blackberry News yesterday. So, Kate, if you're watching, I listened to what you said. As California leaders push back on masked abductions by ICE and CBP. As Trumpy's mass deportation crusade continues, the mayor in Los Angeles County is calling on his city's, or a mayor in Los Angeles County is calling on his city's police department to intervene, citing what he described as increasingly lawless conduct by federal immigration officers. Arturo Flores, the mayor of Huntington Park, issued a statement on Saturday condemning what he called masked abductions by ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which has spent the past month raiding workplaces, farms, and homes as part of the Trump administration's efforts to ramp up the deportation campaign. These are not lawful arrests. Excuse me. These are not lawful arrests. These are abductions, said Flores. For more than a week, we've witnessed families being torn apart, children left without parents, and residents vanishing without explanation. Men dressed in tactical gear, operating unmarked vehicles without displaying credentials or agency affiliation, have infiltrated our neighborhoods in direct violation of our community's values, civil rights, and the basic principles of due process. So they're posing as ICE agents. These are just like bounty hunters that are doing this shit. Flores formally ordered the Huntington Park Police Department to begin verifying the identities and authority of any individuals conducting such operations within city limits and to enforce vehicle codes requiring cars to have visible license plates and agency markings. On June 12th, Huntington Park was turned into a national spectacle when it was targeted for a high-profile raid attended by Kristi Noem, Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. The DHS chief arrived with a squadron of masked armed federal agents at a home DHS claimed was occupied by a dangerous criminal. Uh-oh, watch out now. But when they stormed the home with rifles, the only people inside were a pregnant mother and her 4 kids, all U.S. citizens. The family was not arrested, but Flores said he has since received several reports of masked and unidentified federal officers snatching people off the streets in broad daylight. These actions have sparked rumors of unauthorized vigilantes or bounty hunters operating under the guise of federal enforcement, have triggered widespread fear and confusion through the community, he said. Mayors across the country have issued strong condemnation to ICE's actions in their communities, while some have said they'd refuse to cooperate with federal immigration raids. However, Flores is one of very few who have gone a step further, urging local officers to intervene in situations where federal officers violate the rights of those they detain. What, cops actually doing their jobs? That is crazy talk. This is not immigration enforcement. This is state-sanctioned intimidation, said Flores. That sense of intimidation is spreading through communities across the Los Angeles area. As The Guardian reported on Saturday, the crackdown has left some of Los Angeles' Latino neighborhoods resembling ghost towns, where people are afraid to leave their homes for fear of being snatched off the street next. The sight of masked, unidentified officers in plain clothes abducting people without identifying themselves or giving any explanation for their arrests have become an increasingly common sight all across the United States as the Trump administration has turbocharged its efforts to round up undocumented immigrants, the majority of whom have no criminal records. Though there is no federal statute requiring federal officers to identify themselves, past leaders of these agencies told CNN that masking has historically been reserved for highly sensitive work like undercover operations. The way that they're carrying on without any visible identification, even that they're law enforcement, much less what agency they're with, it really is pretty unprecedented to see at the scale, and I think it's very dangerous, said Scott Schuchart, a senior ICE official during the Biden administration. Oh, you had masked people during Biden's administration too. Fuck off. Many videos have circulated of officers violating detainees' rights in flagrant ways while under the cover of anonymity. On Saturday, multiple masked customs and border protection officers were filmed brutally beating a 48-year-old Narciso Barranco, the father of 3 U.S. Marines, in an IHOP parking lot in Santa Ana. That's right here. I'm not going to show it, but yeah, it's this from KTLA 5. Video has spread across social media of officers forcing Barranco to the ground, striking him in the head at least 6 times, and kneeling on his neck, pushing his face onto the concrete before dragging the man, frightened and bloody, into an unmarked white van. According to Barranco's sons, he is undocumented but has no criminal record. Representative Pramila Jayapal has called for the incident to be investigated. This is horrific, unacceptable violence by ICE, an increasingly rogue agency with zero respect for the law, she said. Again, not really doing anything when you had a Democrat as a president. In response to the attack on Barranco and others like it, 2 Bay Area legislators, Senator Scott Wiener and Jesse Araguin, introduced a bill Monday that would require law enforcement at all levels, including federal, to identify themselves and bar them from wearing masks. People covering their faces impersonating police officers erodes trust in law enforcement, and it undermines community safety, Araguin said. You know what also erodes trust and undermines community safety? Getting shot by cops for bullshit reasons, too. So, there you go. You got to push back. Know your rights. Don't let these coppers say, get in the van. Don't get in no fucking van. There ain't candy in there. And if there is, it ain't for you. I mean, I love candy, but that ain't candy. Meanwhile, down in Colombia's army said 57 soldiers kidnapped in Restive, Southwest. Kidnapped. That's how crazy shit is. The Colombian army says more than 50 soldiers have been seized by civilians in a southwest mountainous area. A platoon of soldiers was the first to be seized on Saturday during an operation in El Tambo, a municipality that is part of an area known as the McKay Canyon, a key zone for cocaine production and one of the most tense in the country's ongoing security crisis. On Sunday, another group of soldiers was surrounded by at least 200 residents as they headed towards the town of Plateado in the same region. As a result of both events, both kidnappings, a total of 4 non-commissioned officers and 53 professional soldiers remain deprived of their liberty, the Army said on Sunday. General Federico Alberto Mejia, who leads military operations in the Southwest, added in a video that it was a kidnapping by rebels who had infiltrated the community. The Colombian Army has maintained that the civilians in the region receive orders from the Central General Staff, the EMC, the main dissident group of the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, the FARC, that refused to be part of a peaceful deal with the government in 2016. President Gustavo Petro, who has pledged to bring peace to the country, said on social media that freeing the soldiers is imperative. The left-wing leader has been trying for months to ensure that the country's armed forces gain access to McKay Canyon, but his government has struggled to contain violence in urban and rural areas as several rebel groups tried to take over territory abandoned by the FARC after the peace deal. May the FARC be with you always. This has made many Colombians fearful of a return to the bloody violence of the 1980s and 90s when cartel attacks and political assassinations were frequent. Peace talks between the FARC and EMC faction and the government broke down last year after a series of attacks on indigenous communities. Yeah. Shit's going crazy all over the place, man. Now Colombia, they're kidnapping soldiers. That's nutty. Cuckoo go nutty. Where are we? Okay, so we got a few more left. Yeah, this is going to be another long one, I think. Because the propaganda watch is going to be, yeah, no problem, Kate. Yeah, this is something that's good, and I hope other communities push back too. They really need to do that. What we haven't really covered too much is how, we always thought the Europe is just 100% in the tank for Israel, and they probably are. But they also support the Palestinians as well. As the European Commission allocates $230 million to support Palestinians, you want to support them, stop supporting Israel. Ooh la la, who is that? That's Kaja Kallis. Ooh, shy to shy, hush, hush. The European Commission announced Monday that it has allocated $230 million to support the UN Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees. That's UNRWA. In the Near East and the Palestinian Authority. On Monday, the Commission announced that it had allocated 150 million euros, or about $172 million, to the PA to ensure the delivery of essential public services, including payment of salaries for teachers, civil servants, and healthcare workers. This financial support is contingent upon the implementation of the reform agenda, it added. UNRWA receives 52 million pounds, or euros, I should say, $50 million to support its education, healthcare, and relief services for Palestinian refugees in the Gaza Strip, West Bank, Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. And since late 2023, UNRWA has been crucial in providing aid and shelter to millions of Palestinians in Gaza, amid ongoing Israeli attacks, some of which targeted UN staff and UNRWA facilities. Dubravka Suica, the commissioner for the Mediterranean, said our support to the Palestinian people remains steadfast. With this first disbursement of 202 million euros to the Palestinian Authority and the UN agency UNRWA, we reaffirm our unwavering political and financial commitment, she added. The funds are part of the Commission's Palestine Recovery and Resilience Program for 2025 through 26, amounting to up to 1.6 billion euros, in which the EU reaffirmed its support for the Palestinian people and its commitment to a two-state solution, not going to happen, as announced in April during the EU-Palestinian Authority high-level political dialogue. The EU is deeply concerned about the catastrophic humanitarian situation in Gaza and the worsening conditions in the West Bank. We remain firmly committed to a just and lasting peace grounded in a negotiated two-state solution, Suica added. But again, you can forget about two-state solution. That's not going to happen. Choosey's in here. And Desert Mantis, too. What's up? John Kemper's going to be the next mayor of New York City. That's awesome. I hope so. He's from Chicago, though. I don't know how that works out. Maybe get a note from his parents or something that says he's all right. He's a good kid. So like I said, you gotta shut shit down, and you gotta get in touch with the right people to do this if you want to have actual change. So you have to go after shipping giants like Maersk, right? So shipping giant Maersk divests from companies linked to Israeli settlements. Here goes Choozy's novel of the day. Maersk will cut ties with companies linked to illegal Israeli settlements on the occupied West Bank, the Danish shipping giant has said. The decision follows months-long pressure by activists on Maersk on issues related to Palestine. Its shipments have come under scrutiny as part of an international campaign led by the Palestinian Youth Movement, the PYM, a grassroots organization. The group has focused mainly on Maersk's shipments of U.S. foreign military sales, but PYM has also researched the transport of cargo from companies tied to settlements. A statement on the Maersk website dated June 2025 said, quote, following a recent review of transports related to the West Bank, we further strengthened our screening procedures in relation to Israeli settlements, including aligning our screening process with the OHCHR database of enterprises involved in activities in the settlements. The OHCHR, the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, database includes businesses involved in various activities related to the settlements, such as providing services, equipment, or financial operations that support the illegal settlements. When asked for further details on its decision, Maersk pointed Al Jazeera to the statement on its website. It's unclear which or how many businesses Maersk had links to. Israel has built more than 100 settlements across the occupied West Bank that are home to some 500,000 settlers. These settlements, illegal under international law, range from small outposts to larger communities with modern infrastructure. This sends a clear message to the global shipping industry. Compliance with international law and basic human rights is not optional. Doing business with Israel's illegal settlements is no longer viable, and the world is watching to see who follows next, said PYM's Aisha Nazar. But she called for further action, arguing that Maersk still transports goods excuse me, for the Israeli military, including components of its F-35 fighter planes. Maersk continues to profit from the genocide of our people, regularly shipping F-35 components used to bomb and massacre Palestinians, Nazar said. We will continue to build pressure and mobilize people power until Maersk cuts all ties to genocide and ends the transport of weapons and weapons components to Israel. Last year, Spain banned Maersk ships transporting military goods to Israel from using its ports. Earlier this month, PYM revealed how Maersk was using the port of Rotterdam as an essential link in what it called a supply chain of death. Despite a Dutch court ruling that prohibited the Netherlands from exporting F-35 parts to Israel, Rotterdam still played a role in Israel's F-35 program, the report showed. In response to those findings, Maersk told Al Jazeera that it upholds a strict policy of not shipping weapons or ammunition to active conflict zones, wink, 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 and that it conducts due diligence, particularly in regions affected by active conflicts, including Israel and Gaza, and adapts this due diligence to the changing context. It confirmed, however, that its U.S. subsidiary, Maersk Line Limited, was one of many companies supporting the global F-35 supply chain with transport services. So, yeah, you have to get to Maersk. You have to get to companies like that that control the blood flow, as it were. Oi, all choky. I'm so choky. All right, two more out of Syria here, and then we're done with the news. So, yeah, Syria death toll rises to 27 in Damascus. Church suicide bombing. This is terrible. The death toll from Sunday suicide bombing at a Damascus church has risen to at least 27, marking one of the deadliest attacks on Christians in the Syrian capital in over a decade. A mask, excuse me. Okay, sorry. Had one that clogged in there. A mass suicide bomber entered the Greek Orthodox Mars Elias church in the Douala district on the outskirts of Damascus while worshippers, including children, were gathered in prayer. He opened fire on the congregation before detonating an explosive vest, possibly with the assistance of a second gunman. The blast shattered pews and caused extensive damage inside the church. The Syrian Ministry of Health reported 25 killed and 63 wounded, while the UK-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said 27 people died in the blast, in addition to 3 unidentified body parts, yikes, recovered from the site. As of Monday afternoon, no group had formally claimed responsibility, and the identity of the perpetrator remained unknown. However, state officials and independent monitors have pointed to the involvement of an ISIS sleeper cell. Syrian President Ahmad al-Shara condemned the bombing as a heinous crime that targeted innocent people in their places of worship, calling for national unity in the face of terrorism. We pledge to the bereaved that we will work day and night to arrest all those who participated in and planned this heinous crime, he said, notably stopping short of directly addressing Syria's targeted Christian community. The attack comes as the government attempts to gain the support of minority communities, while Shara, a former al-Qaeda member who has rebranded himself as a statesman following a dramatic rise to power, continues to struggle to assert authority across the country. I demand that Ahmad al-Shara himself comes and investigates the attack if he is really a president for this country and cares about Christians in this country, the wife of Georges Berchara, who was killed alongside 6 of his family members, told reporters. In a press conference, Syrian Interior Ministry spokesman Nuruddin al-Baba said that initial investigations indicate that ISIS was behind the attack. The security of places of worship is a red line, he said, adding that ISIS and remaining members of the ousted Assad government are trying to destabilize Syria. Syrian Information Minister Hamza Mustafa condemned the attack, describing it as a terrorist act. This cowardly act goes against the civil values that bring us together, he said on the tweeters. We will not back down from our commitment to equal citizenship, and we also affirm the state's pledge to exert all its efforts to combat criminal organizations and to protect society from all attacks threatening its safety. The suicide bomber detonated an explosive belt at the church entrance as around 350 worshipers gathered for the evening service, which was being held in honor of Antiochian saints. Witnesses and videos widely shared on social media showed shattered glass, bloodied floors, and overturned pews inside the church, with emergency lights flashing as rescue teams pulled out the dead and wounded. Now, this is an attack against every patriotic Syrian who believes in Syria. Minister of Emergency and Disaster Management Raed al-Salah said. Salah is the former director of the Syrian civil defense organization known as the White Helmets. You know those guys. The White Helmets. On Monday morning, the scene outside the church was marked by shattered glass, a heavy security presence, and an eerie calm. Numerous international and Arab governments, including the United States, European Union, France, and the United Arab Emirates, and Lebanon, strongly condemned the church bombing as a cowardly terrorist act and urged Syrian authorities to protect religious minorities. For his part, Turkish President Erdogan on Monday denounced the attack, calling it a heinous terrorist attack. We will never allow our sisterly neighbor in Syria to be dragged into a new state of instability at the hands of terrorist groups in the suburbs, Erdogan said in a statement. The Greek Orthodox Patriarchate also condemned the bombing and urged Syrian authorities to protect places of worship. A vigil for the victims is scheduled to be held this evening. That was last night at the Mar Elias Church. Why do you do this every time? Come on. And finally, the Syrian government has slammed the Kurdish move to reopen and administer Qamishli Airport. The future of Qamishli Airport has emerged as a new flashpoint in tensions between Syria's interim government and Kurdish-led authorities in the country's northeast. Never count out the Kurds. The Kurdish-led Democratic Autonomous Administration of North and East Syria, that's Danes, on Thursday announced it would set up a new agency to reopen and operate the airport, effectively sidelining the government's Civil Aviation Authority. In response, the Civil Aviation Authority asserted it had the exclusive right to manage the country's airports, saying in a statement that any move by Danes to use it would be a clear violation of laws and international aviation regulations. It added that the airport was currently closed for operational reasons, a decision which was binding on all airline companies and concerned parties locally and internationally. Qamishli Airport has been closed to civilian flights for almost a decade due to the country's brutal 14-year civil war. It was used by the Assad regime and Russia as a military base prior to the overthrow of Bashar al-Assad in December. The Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, that's the SDF, captured it from pro-Assad fighters amid the lightning offensive launched by Islamist-led rebels in late November. Danes has continued to allow the Russian military to use the airport as a base since the coming to power of former HTS leader Ahmad al-Sharaa, who has threatened to end Moscow's leases on the Hmyman Air Base and Tartus Naval Facility. The dispute over the airport is the latest episode in the ongoing standoff between the central government and a Kurdish leadership wary of the country's new leaders. Syrian Kurds, who currently control around 25% of the country, are pushing for a federal system that allows them to retain some autonomy from Damascus, an idea opposed by the interim government. The two sides signed an agreement in March to begin reintegrating Kurdish forces and organizations into national institutions, but in practice, little has changed on the ground. Syria's mostly Sunni new authorities have pledged to protect the rights of Druze, Kurdish, Christian, and other minorities since coming to power in December and have attempted to assuage concerns. Assuage. Ooh, that looks like a sausage if you look at it right. Mass killings of Alawite civilians in March have stoked fears, however, that the country's new rulers may not be willing or able to crack down on outbreaks of sectarian violence. So, yeah. I believe that's it for that. Yeah. So, Syria is just a mess, right? You know, totally, mostly obliterated by Israel, who's still bombing the hell out of it. And then, of course, the Kurds trying to find their place within this new dynamic. So that's your newsy news. That's the news. We got more news, but it's more of the propaganda watch type stuff. So let's see. Okay. So coming up, yeah, we got a little talking about this ceasefire that Trump seems to tried to wish happen, and it didn't happen. It's just more of Trump's dumb shit. We'll tell you more in a second.
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish these things that are true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
I just saw something on here. I was like, oh, okay. So this was from last night. Iran and Israel have agreed to a ceasefire, according to Trump, right? So this is from around 10:15 last night. I guess local time there. So this Iran and Israel have agreed to a ceasefire, U.S. President Donald Trump claimed on Monday evening. The announcement came hours after Iran fired missiles at a U.S. military base in Qatar in response to American strikes on its nuclear facilities. So this is what this idiot wrote on his Truth Social, and I'll tell you the importance here in just a second. It's been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now, when Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their in-progress final missions for 12 hours, at which point the war will be considered ended, Trump wrote on his Truth Social platform. Officially, Iran will start the ceasefire, and upon the 12th hour, Israel will start the ceasefire. Well, why don't they start the ceasefire at the same time? And upon the 24th hour, an official end of the 12-day war will be saluted by the world. during each ceasefire, and the other side will remain peaceful and respectful on the assumption that everything works as it should, which it will. I would like to congratulate both countries. Well, it turns out they're still bombing each other. And this is the kind of bullshit that these MAGA people say. See, Trump's trying to stop shit. He don't want no war. He don't want no war, but we got to do it for the baby Jesus. We got to do it because Bible tells us. And Trump has been back and forth with, saying that they wanted diplomacy when they were helping Israel the whole time behind the scenes, planning, this bombing of Iran. And that's the thing. And that's why we have to reach out to our friends and neighbors who see this kind of stuff and they don't understand the nuance of it, right? That Trump is he's just a talker. He's not really in control of anything. It's his staff that they get their marching orders, and he's basically Biden with a little more coherence, a little more. But he's controlled just like the rest of them are. And it was just so funny seeing like some of my friends in the media were last night saying, that's bullshit. It's bullshit. I was hoping against hope that Trump was actually going to be like, you know what? Maybe if I actually say it, this shit's going to actually happen. And I was like, come on, man. I was rolling the dice. I rolled the dice and it didn't pay off. I was like, come on. Broken clock, right? I know, right? That's what I was like, hooray, he did it. But he didn't do it. So anyway, that was going to be the top story. And I put that in as clickbait, I guess. So I am admitting that I did a little clickbaity stuff today in the title and the thumbnail. So I apologize for that. We'll try to avoid that in the future. So Israel, I love Declassified UK. They always get into the naughty bits about what goes on over there. As Israeli arms firm lobbied the Home Office on Palestine Action Court case. How about that? So Israel's largest weapons company, Elbit Systems, lobbied the Home Office for a retrial after criminal charges against Palestine Action's co-founders were dismissed, Declassified can reveal. So this is their charges against them were dismissed, and Elbit was like, what? We can't have that. Jurors at Snaresbrook Crown Court acquitted 6 pro-Palestine activists of 9 charges in December 2023, while failing to reach a decision on 23 other charges. Now, a letter seen by Declassified UK shows that Elbit's UK security director, Chris Morgan, wrote to Britain's then policing minister, Chris Philip, on January 15, 2024. He noted that the founders and the controlling minds of the Palestine Action Criminal Group, Richard Barnard and Huda Amori, were on trial for a multitude of offenses. Morgan added, whilst Barnard was found guilty of criminal damage at one of our sites, the jury failed to reach a verdict on 7 other charges for them both, including 2 counts of burglary which took place in 2020. To this end, Morgan raised concerns that a retrial is not a certainty and suggested it is very much in the public interest for this trial to be reheard at the earliest opportunity, emphasizing the prolific and serious nature of Palestine Action's offending. But say that with a British accent. The letter provides further evidence of Elbit Systems pressuring the British authorities to crack down on Palestine Action, which the UK government has said it will prescribe. The Crown Prosecution Service, CPS, subsequently ordered a retrial for the activists, which is scheduled for 2027. One of the activists described the wait for a retrial as a form of psychological warfare on defendants because it's another year and a half where we can't progress with our life, you can't make long-term decisions or get jobs. Consequences go way beyond just waiting for this trial. This is far from the only evidence to indicate Elbit's proximity to the UK government. In August 2020, just 1 month after Palestine Action was lost, then UK Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab met with Orit Farkash Hakohen, Israel's former Minister of Strategic Affairs. Farkash Hakohen pressed Raab on direct action protests against Israeli companies in Britain, noting how the London offices of Elbit Systems had been attacked for the fourth time in as many weeks. Rob told her that he and the British government were committed to stopping such events, according to a report in Israel National News. 2 years later, Britain's then Home Security Priti Patel, met privately with Martin Fawcett, the CEO of Elbit Systems UK, to discuss protests and security. You may know Priti Patel from the whole, oh God, I can't believe I'm blanking. Anyway, Priti was, I'll think of it in a second. Home Office documents revealed that the purpose of the meeting was to reassure Fawcett that the criminal protests against Elbit Systems UK are taken seriously by government. In the meeting, Patel told how Palestine Action's protests against Elbit were getting more and more severe, and the activists were well organized, funded, and trained. Choosy has, Choosy, you don't have to have a separate line for each. You could combine some of those comments and save us a bunch of wear and tear in our eyeballs. She became deeply concerned about everything she heard and produced a number of suggested actions. That list remained redacted in its entirety. At the time of Patel's meeting with Fawcett, the British authorities had not managed to secure any convictions against Palestine Action. But 1 month after the meeting, Britain's then Attorney General Suella Braverman referred a case of 4 activists cleared of toppling slave trader Edward Colston's statue to the Court of Appeals. This rare move was criticized at the time by defense attorney Raj Chadha, who said it was extremely disappointing and should give everyone who cares about the integrity of our legal system cause for concern. The ruling that followed stipulated that conviction for causing significant damage to property during protest would fall outside the protections of the European Convention of Human Rights. This provided the British authorities with a wider remit to prosecute Palestine Action activists, and the conviction duly followed. Okay. In spring 2023, Palestine Action launched a campaign against UAV Tactical Systems, a drone factory in Leicester owned by Elbit and Thales, a French arms firm. In the midst of that campaign, Philip held a briefing with Leicester Police's deputy chief constable regarding the ongoing protests. Our police report, which was disclosed in court, offers details of what was discussed. 1,700 brief policing minister and Home Office team, it notes, real push to support company legitimate business, suggests proactive work with Meta, Facebook, and Instagram. The document continues. Pushes for remand of those arrested and supports proactive action, show of police, and clearly expects us to be taking action against those that commit crime. Focus not on peaceful protesters and facilitating that, but on the company. The Home Office was thus seemingly instructing the police to prioritize the interests of the company and remand activists rather than facilitate freedom of assembly and expression, liberties enshrined in the Human Rights Act. Other documents seen by Declassified indicate how the Israeli arms firm has taken measures into its own hands in Britain. Elbit Systems UK has its own intelligence cell and shares information with the police across the country on a 2-weekly basis. A police file observes. Elbit did not respond to a request for comment because then they'd have to lie. Yeah, so Elbit all up in not just the UK, but other countries as well. Okay. So and of course there were protests for this in the UK too. British Home Secretary Yvette Cooper confirmed her plan to ban Palestine Action under anti-terror legislation as hundreds protested in central London yesterday. The police banned protesters from assembling outside Parliament, so hundreds rallied in Trafalgar Square, where scuffles took place between protesters and the police. Instigators and the police. London's Metropolitan Police said that 3 people were arrested If the decision to proscribe the activist group is passed by Parliament, the move will designate the group a terrorist organization, making membership and support illegal. The announcement came after activists broke into an RAF Bryce Norton Air Base on scooters and sprayed warplanes with red paint. In a statement, Cooper branded the action as disgraceful, adding that the UK's defense enterprise is vital to the nation's national security. There it is. And this government will not tolerate those that put that security at risk. She claimed the group's activities have targeted key national infrastructure and defense firms that provide services and supplies to support Ukraine. Cooper said a draft prescription order will be laid before Parliament next week. If passed, it would effectively ban the group. This is completely unprecedented and totally shocking, Palestine Action spokesperson Max Geller told Middle East Eye. If this was an incredibly rushed decision, and it came on the heels of a staggering humiliation of the British military establishment by two activists on scooters, and this seems like the end result of a rush job with no consultation. Geller, who is not a British citizen and carries American nationality, said that the move could threaten his ability to stay in the country. I have 2 little British children and a British wife. If this thing happens, I'm not sure I'll be able to stay in the country because the forms ask you to say if you've ever been a member of a terrorist organization. Yeah. So, and then it goes into the Home Office thing that we just told you about. So Trump's been impeached twice, right? He hasn't been convicted, but he's been impeached twice. And this was just witch hunts that they were trying to get rid of Trump, or at least give the illusion that they were trying to get rid of Trump. Right? Over documents or over some shit he did outside. But now, because of what he's doing now since January, there are seriously choosy. Just okay, just let you okay, all right, I guess choosy, but you could condense those if you wanted to. So now some legitimate impeachment calls are coming, and I'm not saying this is going to happen, but this is probably the most legit attempt at trying to get rid of him because of all the bullshit he's doing now. As Trumpy took to social media on Sunday night to express that regime is on the table for Iran's government, or express that regime change is on the table for Iran's government, the call from Democratic lawmakers and outside progressive voices for his impeachment continued to grow following the weekend bombing of Iranian nuclear sites. It's not politically correct to use the term regime change, Trump posted on Sunday night with Truth Social. One day after the U.S. struck 3 sites in Iran overnight on Saturday. But if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change? MIGA. So we didn't destroy Fordo, and we are doing regime change. How are their proponents of this anymore, wrote Senator Chris Murphy, Democrat. Monday. On Saturday, the U.S. dropped several 30,000-pound bunker buster bombs on Fordo, Iran's heavily fortified nuclear facility. Facilities at Natanz and Isfahan were also targeted. Independent experts who viewed satellite imagery of the areas told NPR that the strike left Iran's nuclear program damaged but not destroyed. In remarks on Monday, Rafael Grossi, Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, said given the explosive payload utilized and the extreme vibration-sensitive nature of centrifuges, very significant damage is expected to have occurred. Speaking to the IAEA's Board of Governors, Grossi called for an immediate ceasefire between Israel and Iran so that inspectors could view and assess the damage to the targeted sites. Prior to the attacks, U.S. intelligence agencies had assessed that Iran was not attempting to build a nuclear weapon. Even before Trump made his comments about regime change on Sunday, multiple Democratic members of Congress took to social media to say that Trump's strikes on Iran constitute an impeachable offense. Well, technically that and Yemen too, and Yemen didn't attack us either, so you could throw that in the mix. Trump has impulsively risked launching a war that may ensnare us for generations, AOC wrote on the tweeters, "It is absolutely clearly grounds for impeachment." Meanwhile, Representative Sean Casten out of Illinois here wrote on Sunday, "This is not about the merits of Iran's nuclear program. No president has the authority to bomb another country that does not pose an imminent threat to the U.S. without the approval of Congress. This is an unambiguous, impeachable offense." Right? So the first times he was impeached, it was over some outside shit. But this is like shit that he's actually done with his presidency that he ain't supposed to be doing. Which I say is the most legitimate reason for impeachment. Not that they're going to do it. Consumer advocate Ralph Nader wrote that Representative Jamie Raskin, the leading constitutional expert in Congress, should launch an impeachment push. Nader urged Raskin to file an article impeachment against Trump for engaging in a major war without a congressional declaration. MAGA claimed to be anti-war when they voted for Trump. Well, he has betrayed you. Time to stand for your principles, sign the War Powers Resolution, and impeach Trump, wrote Saikat Chakrabarty, who is running for Representative Nancy Pelosi's seat in Congress. The journalist Don Dworkin wrote, "Congress must impeach and remove Trump, period." Representatives Thomas Massey and Ro Khanna introduced a War Powers Resolution in the U.S. House last week, asserting the constitutional requirement of congressional approval for any declaration of war. Senator Tim Kaine introduced one in the Senate. Well, that asshole. Trump's comments about regime change came hours after Trump administration officials told the media early on Sunday that getting rid of Iran's leadership is not the administration's goal, which was bullshit. This mission was not and has not been about regime change. Bullshit. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said in a press conference on Sunday morning, "The president authorized a precision operation to neutralize the threats to our national interests posed by the Iranian nuclear program," which there was no threats. J.D. Vance, Vice President J.D. Vance said Sunday that our view has been very clear that we don't want a regime change. But then it turns out you wanted a fucking regime change. Jesus Christ. Okay, you probably tap that. So it turns out it didn't really matter if Iran was building nukes or not. They were going to come after Iran regardless. And you're like, well, how can you say that? Well, it's not me saying it. Just take it from Aquaman. Boy, that's a lot, even for you, Choosy. Jesus. So Aquaman says it's irrelevant whether Iran decided to build a nuclear weapon. This is from Dave DeCamp over there at antiwarnews.com or antiwar.com. Secretary of State Aquaman said Sunday that whether Iran has decided to build a nuclear weapon is irrelevant, as he was pressed on the lack of evidence that Tehran has taken steps to weaponize its nuclear program. Well, it's irrelevant. That's what children say. Rubio made the comment in an interview with CBS News when asked about the fact that U.S. intelligence has no evidence that Iran was seeking a bomb before Israel launched its war on the country. See, because Rubio doesn't know shit about Iran either, just like Ted Cruz. That's irrelevant. I think that question being asked in the media, that's an irrelevant question. They have everything they need to build a weapon, Aquaman said. In March, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard said that there was no evidence that Iran decided to build a nuclear weapon, and that was still the consensus of the U.S. intelligence community, according to multiple media reports. Rubio pointed to the fact that Iran was enriching uranium at 60%, which is still below the 90% needed for weapons grade, as evidence that Iran has the capability to build a bomb, since it could quickly increase to the 90% level. Iran had made clear when it was engaged in negotiations with the U.S. that it was willing to bring its enrichment levels back down to 3.67%. But the U.S. decided to back an Israeli attack instead of pursuing such a deal, and ultimately bombed 3 Iranian nuclear facilities. Iran took the step to start enriching uranium at 60% in 2021, following an Israeli sabotage attack on its Natanz nuclear facility, which was meant to disrupt negotiations between the Biden administration and Iran that were ongoing at the time. So, yeah. They just wanted. That's the thing. They'll use any excuse to get, So the false flags are not going to work anymore because people are already privy to that shit. And of course, as the U.S. bombs Iran, the Congress is divided over Trump strikes largely along party lines. This may be their best attempt at getting rid of Trump through an actual, through an actual impeachment. The other two, it was just they knew they didn't have the votes for it, but they may be able to turn some Republicans on this. Maybe it depends on what the Republicans get out of it. U.S. lawmakers have not uniformly backed the country's strikes on Iran, with responses largely split down party lines. Trump said the U.S. had targeted 3 nuclear sites in Iran late on Saturday as Washington directly joined Israel's days-long assault on the Islamic Republic. The threat of war between the U.S. and Iran had been on the cards for decades, and the attack was the fulfillment of a long-standing wish for some, while others dreaded the specter of the U.S. entering another Middle East war. Left-wing centrist Bernie Sanders was giving a speech at a rally in Tulsa, Oklahoma, when he learned of the attack on Iran, which he denounced as unconstitutional. As he read out the statement from Trump on the attack, the crowd started booing and chanting "No more war," to which Sanders responded, "I agree, but, my friend Joe, and Israel has a right to defend itself, y'all," that kind of thing. "All of you know that the only entity that can take this country to war is the U.S. Congress. The president does not have the right," he said. Other Democrats, particularly on the progressive wing, also condemned the attacks. Democratic California Congressman Ro Khanna, that is the Dollar Tree Ray Romano, condemned the attack taking place without any authorization of Congress, and said on the tweeters that Congress needed to urgently support his war powers resolution to prevent America from being dragged into another endless Middle East war. What was his brother's name on that show? I can't remember. AOC called for Trump to be impeached. We told you about that. Other more centrist Democrats also criticized the attacks, albeit often while also condemning Iran. So, of course, Hakeem Jeffries has to get his flip-flopping ass up in there. Leader of the House Democratic Caucus said the authority to launch a war should rest with Congress, but also said Iran was an enemy. Don't forget, we still love Israel. Never be permitted to become a nuclear-capable power, but it's okay for Israel. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, he chimed in some bullshit. Republicans largely threw their support behind the attacks. This was the right call. The regime deserves it. Well done, President Donald Trump, wrote South Carolina Republican Senator Lindsey Graham after fanning himself for getting the vapors. A longtime supporter of attacking Iran. To my fellow citizens, we have the best Air Force in the world. It makes me so proud. Fly, fight, win. Rick Crawford, an Arkansas Republican chair of the House Intelligence Committee, also supported the attack, saying he regretted that Iran has brought the world to this point. Yeah, it was Iran's. You bombing the shit out of me. That's my fault. There were, however, a handful of Republicans who criticized the attack. Marjorie Taylor Greene, that crazy broad from Georgia, a far-right congresswoman associated with Trump's Make America Great Again, has been staunchly opposed to the U.S. involvement in a war on Iran. She wrote in a Twitter post, "Let us all join together and pray for peace." What? There's no thoughts and prayers? Where's thoughts and prayers? I want thoughts and prayers. So yeah, they're doing the same playbook they did in Iraq in 2003. Tuesday, I don't know what your deal is today. I hope you're okay. There's, I guess I could just save this for another time. But basically, there's comparisons being going on to how, They said in 2003 that we don't want the evidence to be in the smoking gun to be in the shape of a mushroom cloud, and that they had all these tubes, and then you had what's his face, Colin Powell, at the UN with the little vial of, yeah, and they're trying to say, and they've been saying this too with Iran. Oh, they're 3 months away from having a nuke. They're 3 months away, y'all. And meanwhile, Israel's had one since what, like the 50s? Several. Depending on who you ask, it's like 40 to 900 or some shit, some crazy amount. Yeah, Choosy, yeah, you probably need to write this down somewhere else and get your novel printed. So we'll save that for another. Okay. One moment, please. I have a little bit of, just a little smidge of setup here. Okay, and so finally today, as we're kind of running a little bit long anyway. So we told you, like, this, they said that Iran's like 3 months away from having a nuke. It was never about nukes. It was never about like safety in the region. It was about regime change. And our buddy James Lee, check out his channel 5149 with James Lee. L.I. is his name. And he's talking about it was never about nukes. It was about regime change.
Trump just said the quiet part out loud. He admits that the war with Iran has nothing to do with nuclear weapons and everything to do with regime change. He posted on Truth Social, quote, "It's not politically correct to use the term regime change, but if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change?" MEGA. First off, what a brilliant move hijacking the term MEGA. Because yesterday, in the aftermath of the US bombing of Iran, MEGA was actually trending across Twitter, an obvious jab aimed at making a mockery of Trump, suggesting that he isn't MAGA, Make America Great Again, but rather MEGA, Make Israel Great Again. And today, he's activated his minions, including one Laura Loomer, to blast into the Twitter sphere, Make Iran Great Again. Hey, you can love or hate the guy, but you've got to admit he knows how to hijack a narrative. But today, I'm about to tell you what's actually going on. Starting with this map here, take a look at it closely, and tell me, which country is the only one in the region with nukes? It's Israel. Iran, we still have yet to see any credible evidence that Iran actually has nukes. Now in 2012, the late Kenneth Walt, a World War II veteran and a prominent scholar in the field of international relations, wrote this paper titled, "Why Iran Should Get the Bomb," saying, quote, "If Iran goes nuclear, Israel and Iran will deter each other, as nuclear powers always have. There has never been a full-scale war between nuclear-armed states. Once Iran crosses the nuclear threshold, deterrence will apply, even if the Iranian arsenal is relatively small. No other country in the region will have an incentive to acquire its own nuclear capability, and the current crisis will finally dissipate, leading to a Middle East that is more stable than it is today." Yeah, you're not going to hear this on the news, but in fact, it can be argued that Israel's regional nuclear monopoly has actually fueled instability in the Middle East, and that is perhaps by design. You see, with Gaza under rubble, the tensions in the West Bank boiling over, and global protests against Israel on the rise, Netanyahu needs this war more than ever. Because war means distraction. War means national unity. War means don't talk about my corruption trial or the genocide that's being live streamed every single day. It's the oldest trick in the book. Create an outside enemy to hold on to power. And Washington, Trump, we go along with it because A, Israeli intelligence feeds us our talking points. B, the war machine loves it. And C, and this is very, very important, we want the oil.
They're sitting on the top of one of the largest piles of oil in the world. And I actually did say, don't go in, don't go in, don't go in. But I said, if you're going to go in, keep the oil.
There's Trump again, saying the quiet part out loud. Many people forget this, or it's not taught to us on purpose, but back in 1951, this man, Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh, was democratically elected by the people of Iran, and also named Time Magazine Man of the Year in 1952, specifically for standing up to Western imperialism. And in that vein, he did something unforgivable in the eyes of the West, in that he nationalized Iran's oil supply. So what did we do? Well, the US sent in the CIA to overthrow their government in a secret operation called Project Ajax. We then installed a dictator, the Shah, who gave us unfettered access to the oil, but also ruled brutally with US support for 25 years. We're talking secret police, torture, executions, and this is eventually what led to the rise of the Ayatollah and the Muslim fundamentalist government ruling Iran today. In fact, the US has repeatedly overthrown secular governments in the Middle East because they oppose Western imperialism. Iran in 1953, we just talked about, Iraq in 63, and also in 2003 with Saddam Hussein, Afghanistan in the 80s, Libya, Syria, that was in 2011 under Obama. And today, in regards to the Iranian oil industry, the top benefactor is China, something the US has desperately been wanting to change for a very long time. You still think it's about the nukes? Also, this is kind of important too. It's not necessarily the case that Netanyahu owns Trump, although it's definitely true that Israel has way too much influence in American politics, and it also makes for very funny memes like this. The truth is probably closer to, Trump and Netanyahu. They're still engaged in coitus, so to speak, if we're going to continue with this analogy, but the power dynamics might be a little bit more neutral. Israel, they don't want Iran to have a nuke because that would mean deterrence, maybe even peace. But it also needs Iran to want one because the threat keeps the war machine humming and keeps Netanyahu in power. And the US, we're veterans at this. We've done all of this before. We're talking about toppling governments, seizing oil fields, and calling it liberation. So when they tell you this is just one quick strike, don't buy it. Get ready, I'm telling you this right now, get ready for the dial to be turned up to 11 for another endless war sold as some kind of surgical strike in the name of democracy or liberation. My name is James Lee. This is the 5149 Show. Let me know what your thoughts are about possible war with Iran. Comment below. Be sure to also hit that like and subscribe button if you want to support independent media, and also if you want more stories that go beyond what you're allowed to question in the mainstream narrative.
I mean, the vice president went on to say that they needed to act now because there was a narrow window, and if they waited, it could have been too late. And they needed to stop the proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. Do you not share that concern?
No, I don't share that concern. But I have another concern, and that is that 3 bombings to neutralize Iran may turn out to be the 2025 version of 2 weeks to slow the spread.
2 weeks to slow the spread, yes. All those greatest hits. So, anybody says, oh, we got to keep nukes out of their hands, it's that had nothing to do with it. None whatsoever. And we need to expose that. We need to expose this fuckery. These, what do they call it? Gaslighting that's going on. I know, right? It'd be nice to be able to use our powers for that. So coming up later today, I think, who is it? Our buddy Kevin over at Black Bear News. I think coming up, come on, I'm trying to get this set up. What's up, Max? Good to see you. So where's this thing? Yeah. So make sure you check out Black Bear News, and if you can, donate or share out his link for his GoFundMe. He lost his home during the LA fires earlier this year, so any little bit helps. If you can donate or share, and check out his show too, coming up later on YouTube and on Twitter, and I think on Telegram as well. So. And I believe Willie had a show on last night. Willie somehow had his chat line off, and so nobody could respond. And we were like, "Damn you, Willie, for taking away our things." But it wasn't that way. He just ended up clicking that thing. So don't forget, Around the World, Dia and Friends, and of course all our pals here in the independent space. Check out their channels and support them. Finally today, Gen Z, or at least some members of Gen Z, are trying to do things a little bit different, trying not to kill their livers, as sober clubbing brews fresh beat for Singapore Gen Z. See, clubbing brews. You're like, well, why is that funny? Look at it. And they're drinking coffee. So they're drinking coffee. All right. Swaying to dance music and TikTok fueled pop under a disco ball, young punters, I guess that's what they're called, are packed shoulder to shoulder while sipping on coffee, their energy powered by pour-overs rather than pints. This is no underground rave nor a brunch gone wild. It's a caffeine-powered daytime clubbing sesh, part of a growing wave of alcohol-free Gen Z-driven events gaining traction in Singapore and elsewhere in the world. At a recent event in Singapore's trendy Duxton district, the space was jammed by 4 p.m. with baristas churning out fancy coffees and DJs spinning back-to-back sets. Whoa. Raise the roof, Sally. The crowd grooved with energy even without the usual liquid courage. A lot of people think alcohol gives you the high, but caffeine sometimes can do that too, said Eaton Lowe, 21, co-founder of Beans and Beats, which organizes coffee raves at different venues. That's why the atmosphere at our events tends to be quite energetic. Yeah, everybody's jazzed up on coffee. The parties blend curated music with specialty coffee served in white paper cups. The vibe is light, friendly, and very Gen Z. It's also the idea that this is a safe space, said Esther Lowe, 31, who was at the event in Duxton. When you go to a club setting, there's usually this underlying intention to hook up. So for me, that's personally why I would prefer this, because apparently you're not going to hook up with coffee. You don't make friends with salad, and you don't hook up with coffee. Several reports say Gen Z is chugging fewer pints than previous generations, with the sober curious movement gaining popularity on social media. Sober curious people cut back on drinking or abstain altogether, often citing health reasons and better mental acuity. Changes in alcohol use have been observed in population surveys and cohort studies. Generally, alcohol use among young adults has decreased, as according to the World Health Organization in a 2024 report. From London to LA and Melbourne, similar coffee raves have swept up the social scene, appealing to young partygoers who also want to avoid hangovers. Yeah, that takes a step out for sure. Ashley Chien, a Singaporean student who has been alcohol-free for a year, said she appreciates these sober gatherings. When I lived in Paris, I realized I had a lot of alcoholic tendencies, and I didn't want that to be my lifestyle, the 20-year-old told AFP. More and more of my friends are sober or sober curious. I like that, sober curious. I'm curious about sobriety. It's like you weren't born drunk. What the hell? The coffee clubbing events are usually held in cafes and other spaces such as rooftop bars, as long as there's room for DJs and baristas to do their thing while people dance. The parties typically end by late afternoon, just in time for golden hour selfies. Besides the health benefits of avoiding alcohol, the events appeal to cost-conscious youth in Singapore, one of the most expensive cities in the world. The excess drinking and hard partying ways of Gen X, you damn right. Fueled by anthems like the Beastie Boys' Fight for Your Right to Party and hip-hop videos glamorizing club culture, are fading for members of Gen Z. Yeah, because they probably can't afford to go out. While organizers don't see Singapore's glitzy nightlife and clubbing being replaced, they hope their combination of beats and brews will keep the dance floor buzzing. See, you get it. It's the thing. CBC voter and I hooked up or just met at 420. Nice. As long as we bring the vibes, we'll be okay, said Ashley. So yeah, so instead of like, back in my day, we just used ecstasy at our raves. So that was a drug at the time. Some people called it E, we called it X. Yeah, when I think of rave, that's what I think of, somebody with glow sticks and the pacifier, just like, I love life. Oh, that's funny. The first time I went camping up in Banaf is the first time I saw a sign that said no hookups. It was in the tents only zone. Yes. So anyway, the little happy ending there for another bullshit episode of Bad News with your host, Uncle Warren. I guess that's it for me. I will be back Friday Same bat time, same bat channel, 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Mountain, 8 a.m. Pacific time. On YouTube, Rockfin, Rumble, and Facebook. Be sure to check out, like I said, all my friends over here. Make sure you're checking out their channels. Otherwise, we'll see you Friday. And, and maybe once the show's over, Choosy will finally finish his great American novel that he's currently writing in my chat. And the poll here is who's going to win the NYC Democratic mayoral primary. 59% say other. They don't give a shit. I'm pretty sure it's don't give a shit. Mamdani at 22% and Cuomo at 19%. So if you're in New York, make sure you're voting for whoever. And I hope it counts. I hope you actually have some change over there for a change. But that Democratic machine is one tough bitch. That's one tough nut to crack. So anyway, thanks everybody. We'll see you on Friday. Support local media. Make sure you're taking care of our people's, our smaller channels that need all the help as well too. Peace out. We'll smell you later.
This is City Alpha 5! Woo!